Hey, what's going on, everybody? I need to turn off one thing. One sec. There we go. Cool. Hope everybody's doing good. Happy Thursday. Uh, Ryan Hawkins, thanks for coming by. There are no more giveaways. We're all done with the giveaways for a little bit, probably till the new year. So, thanks for coming by. Appreciate it. Hope you're doing well. How's your Thursday going? Kind of a chill day here. Got some work done. Had a couple of good conversations with folks about like career things. Um, Chatted with someone who's actually going to be on the stream on Sunday. So we got a guest lined up for Sunday and then the following Sunday. So we'll have a couple of folks on the stream. Looking forward to that. So that should be published and up on the website. Double check it's over there. Nope, it is not, but it will be. We'll get just celebrated the 100 devs cohort. That's awesome. That's really great. Yeah, it was the last lesson or whatever today, right? I missed it. I was making dinner for the family. I missed it, but I hope it went good. I think Leon tweeted like over 200 jobs from this cohort, which is outstanding. So yeah, I would love to help anybody else in the cohort that would want help with resume prep or interview prep or anything like that. So send them over here. Happy to help out. So hey, Sethi, good to see you as well. Bang help should work. What happened? Oh no, my bot crashed. Why did the bot crash? Give me one sec to restart the bot. Yeah, still several looking to continue with coffee chats. Yeah, I mean, have them come by, either on the live stream or have them connect with me on LinkedIn or Twitter and so on. More than happy to chat with any of them and help them out. I haven't tried getting into the Discord lately, but I also haven't heard from any of the mods about getting unbanned from their Discord. So, yeah, I mean, I really want to help people out, and they won't let me back in. So we'll see if they'll let me in at some point. Hey, Whip, good to see you as well. Hope you're doing good. Yeah, so how's everybody else doing on Thursday? It's been a ridiculous week with layoffs and all kinds of weird tech news and stuff. We did kind of a long stream about that last week, so but that was before we knew there were going to be like 11,000 Facebook employees that were going to get laid off. Creative Null, good to see you as well. Creative Null is also a streamer, folks, so go give Creative Null a follow. We'll give a shout out here. It would help if I spell your name correctly. Go give Creative Null a follow. Also does live coding and stuff like that on their stream. So go check them out. Hopefully the layoffs don't foreshadow industry-wide issues. I don't think so, JDS. I mean, we chatted about this for quite a while last week about like, is this the same as the economic problem that we saw back in 2008? Is it the same as the dot-com bust back in 2001? And this one feels different. And I think a lot of companies are starting to realize like, hey, you know what? Maybe hiring all these tech people at ridiculous salaries, like maybe that wasn't such a good plan after all. Hey X, good to see you as well. I think one of the things that we're going to see as a result of this though is I think we're gonna see some salaries come down a little bit because there's going to be a supply and demand thing going on. I mean, there's still plenty of jobs out there, and all the people that are getting laid off, especially those that have experience, they're going to be able to go get new jobs. But I think it's going to bring the salaries down a tiny bit. We saw that in 2008, 2009. We saw it in 2001, where whenever there's like big layoffs and big problems on company-wide scales where people get laid off, we see the salaries come down a little bit, and then they'll start to go back up in another year or so. And I'm not saying they're going to like cut them in half or anything like that, but I think we are going to see the salaries come down. The entry level salary that we were seeing over the past year was, getting pretty close to 100K. I think we're going to see that come back down to like 80, 90K. And then I think it'll tick back up at some point. For senior level devs, we were seeing like 130, 140, 150, depending on the role, sometimes way higher depending on the company. I think we're going to see that come down probably 10, 20K. I think you can still try to negotiate, but I don't know that companies are going to be as open to negotiation. I think for the next 6 months to a year, I think companies are going to be a lot more careful about their cash flow, just until we kind of figure out like what's really going on with the economy and whatnot. So my feeling is I think we're going to see salaries dip a tiny little bit over the next 6 months or so, and then it'll start to pick back up. Like once everything kind of settles down and big companies are getting back into hiring and stuff like that again, which we've heard from a lot of the big FANG companies. They're going to kind of resume their hiring in Q1, Q2. Apple said late Q3 next year. Like it's gonna be a while for 2023 before Apple hires more. I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. But excuse me. Sati sent in a resume review. Yeah, absolutely. I'll go take a look at that right now. But yeah, X, good to see you as well. Let me go pull up the resumes. Oops. Come on. Let's see. Tech interview guide. Yeah, we did see some resumes come in. So let me go pull those up. So yeah, we'll do some resume reviews tonight. And if anybody else has questions, or if you want a resume review as well, feel free to send that in. Here's the link for it. You can go check that out. If you want a private review, just mark that in the note when you upload the PDF. Just say you want a private review. Make sure it's really clear you want a private review, because I almost did one publicly that somebody actually wanted private. So make sure you're very, very clear saying that you want a private review if that's the case. And if you're already working in the industry, I do ask for a donation for that, but all that goes in that pot of money up there. We're doing pretty well over the past couple of weeks, getting some donations in and getting some people subbing to the channel, which is great. And just a reminder, as always, I'm matching all the money that goes in there. So I did find a group that we're going to donate that money to, so I can chat about them later tonight if you're interested. Blacksmith Pop, good to see you in chat. Thanks for dropping by. I'm doing pretty good. A little under the weather, a little tired today, but we'll get through a handful of resume reviews here, and we'll see how we're all doing after that. So let me get these going. So one of them just came back like, I just want some general overall kind of feedback. So yes. And then we got this one. Okay, so there is someone that would like to do a private one, so I will do that one later. Let me mark that one. And pull this one up. Sorry, I know I'm doing a bunch of stuff off screen right now, but we'll get there. Sati, did you say that you sent in a resume? Hey, Jen, good to see you as well. Jen is running an API meetup in our area next week and also does live streaming. So go give Jen a follow as well. Jen's also on Twitter, I think with the same username, right, Jen? And Jen runs a podcast called Teach Gen Tech, and it's a lot of fun. It's always really interesting for me to watch other people learn in public, because I love learning in public as well. So yeah, let's give a quick shout out to Jen. Oops. Shoot. Oh, good. Turns out if you spell somebody's name wrong, it doesn't do a shout out. There you go. Yeah, I have been on the show, and Bakari Holmes, who is going to be on the stream this Sunday, on this stream, was also on Jen's stream as well. So we're all making the rounds. We're all kind of hanging out on everybody's on each other's streams. So Bakari and I had a really good chat today, and we're gonna have Bakari on the stream on Sunday to hear about kind of their background, how they got into tech, and some of the different things that they've been involved in around training and education and technology and robotics and all kinds of really interesting stuff. So it should be a good chat. Sethi, if you're still in chat, can you let me know, did you actually send in a resume? Because I'm not seeing it. Yeah, Bakari is pretty great. So it's funny because Bakari actually applied for a job at Postman. I referred Bakari, and then we had a hiring freeze, and so we're still waiting to find out whether Bakari is potentially going to get interviewed by my team. And then I was at a conference in San Jose, and this person came up, and they're like, "Hey, it's me." I'm like, "Hey, me." Didn't make the connection. I glanced at their name tag, and I'm like, "Where do I know that name from?" And they're like, "It's Bakari. We've chatted online. You referred me for a job at Post." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, yes, hi." And so I actually got to meet in person. Took a picture. It's up on Twitter, and it was great just hanging out in person. So we've stayed in touch. We've chatted a little bit. Um, yeah, let's see. So Sethi, I'm not seeing. Yeah, go ahead and send it again because I'm not seeing it. So yeah, if you want to send that over, and then we'll do a couple other resumes. I've got 2 other resumes queued up that are just looking for general feedback. So we'll dive in on those, and then we'll see what else we got going on. You're definitely jealous. Yeah, we took a picture and we tagged Jen specifically. It's like, hey, look who we found at this API conference. This random. Turns out Bakari lives like 15 minutes from that conference. So yeah, it was really cool to bump into him and get to chat and hang out for a little bit. And I'm like, stay here. My manager's like right here. Let me go get my manager over here. So I went and grabbed my manager, and I'm like, you got to meet this person. So they get to chat a little bit, and she confirmed that yeah, we're on a hiring freeze, but as soon as it opens up, we'll see where it goes. So we'll see. It was nice timing. Yeah, it was it was nice that my manager happened to be at the event with me. So we'll see. Let's see what else is going on. I am 3D printing like a monster these days. I don't know if I showed this one last time, but I'll show off a little bit of what I have printing going on while we wait for Sethi to send in their resume. So this is a backpack with drumsticks sticking out with a strap, and the strap comes out. This strap comes out. This one I've already glued on. This one I have to glue on once it goes around the individual's body. And then there's another strap on the other side. But here's the head. Here's what I'm printing, if anybody knows the character. Anybody know who that is? Any comic book nerds out there? Spider-Gwen, that's right. So Spider-Gwen is going to be enormous, way bigger than Deadpool was. Let me hold it way back here so you can see the enormity of this. The base alone is 11 inches tall. We got some really cool like webs and stuff like that kind of glued in around. And then the legs just finished the other day. And then so those just kind of sit in on some pegs. And I'm printing the torso right now, and then the head will go on that. And then got 2 arms that are kind of like resting out in front of her. And then get the backpack on there. So I got about 5 more days of printing before that one's done. And then on the other printer, I got this guy printing. So I just finished the arms and legs. So I'm printing his underoos right now, so I can attach the legs, and then I got to get the head and hands and the boots printed, and then the cape is going to be enormous. And then that one's going to be probably a good 18 to 20 inches tall as well. Yeah, I do have an MMU setup. It's the Bamboo X1 carbon printer. I have 2 of them. And yeah, they do a fantastic job for multicolor. The person that designed this, they actually have a YouTube video of how they printed it all in one color, and then they went and they airbrushed the whole thing, and then like painted on all the webs and stuff like that. I'm like, that's like a whole other level of talent needed to be able to airbrush and paint and stuff like that. So The MMU setup is what we call a multi-material unit, and basically allows your 3D printer to print in multiple colors at the same time. And so what this one does is it prints in one color, and then it moves to the back, and it ejects that color and pulls a new one in, and it flushes out a bit of filament, and then it resumes the print. So you go in and you digitally paint everything. So if everybody remembers the Deadpool that we gave away, that was digitally painted by me. It was all one color. So that model looked like this. It's just one color. And I went in and I very excruciatingly painted every little nook and cranny of Deadpool, and then we printed that in multiple colors and gave it away. It actually arrived at Tangible Studios' place this week. I haven't heard from them since, so I hope it showed up in one piece. I tried reaching out asking, like, you know, did you get Deadpool? Did it show up intact? Like, so I don't know. We'll find out. Um, yeah, it's pretty neat stuff for sure. And then I've been printing these little multi-material astronauts for people at work. So I got I got one in orange and I made one in white with orange stripes. So they printed at the same time. So there's lots of color swapping back and forth, but they both have the silver, backpacks and panels and stuff like that. But I colored their belt buckles differently based on the stripes and things like that. But these are pretty fun little characters for sure. So maybe we'll see. I'm gonna try and like mass produce. I'm gonna make a bunch of them and like take them to conferences that I go to in the future, and you know, maybe give some away as like trivia contest prizes or something like that. I think it'd be fun. All right, so we got some resumes popping in my inbox. Cool. So we got one from there. We'll pull that one up. It'll be resume 3. And resume 4. Sethi, can you do me a favor and whisper me your email address? Because I think I did get your email. I just didn't connect it because I think the username on the email is different. So Sethi, if you can just send me a quick Twitch whisper and let me know what your email address is. Because I think I already got it. I just didn't connect that it was yours. Oh, actually, I should have known. Yes, I've already got your resume. I should have known that because there's something about Canada in the resume. So I'm gonna make the presumption that that one's yours. And if you want a LinkedIn review, you'll have to send me your. Yeah, that's the one that I got. You'll have to send me your LinkedIn. Oh, actually, it's actually linked on the. So I can review your LinkedIn, but it's going to give away your name. So, do you want me to do that one publicly, or do you want me to do that one privately? That's fine. Okay. All right. Well, we'll do your resume, and then we'll dive into your LinkedIn. So cool. Let's switch views here. Let's go over to this one. Let me get the screen ready here. All right. Cool. So we got a resume to review, and this one came from Sethi in chat. And so, per usual, I like to kind of zoom out on them and kind of see like what's up with the overall layout. So I like to zoom like way out on these resumes just to kind of get a sense of like, we got this big empty space right here on the resume, but is that a big deal? Probably not. Overall, pretty clean layout, other than it wrapped into a second page. But we'll kind of look at what's going on the resume as we go. So they masked out their contact information, but Sethi also asked for a LinkedIn review, so we'll go through that next, which is going to show their real name. Applied computer science grad, experienced in full stack. Let me zoom in just a bit more on this. I wish I knew how to close off this left panel. So there we go. All right, substantial hands-on experience in JavaScript, Node, .NET 6, and Java experience. So if you use .NET, I would probably want to see C# or something in here, but you're jumping immediately into a skills block. So I would just say substantial hands-on experience and then not name things. In this case, you're highlighting some skills. So my guess is you're building a resume for a specific job. And what I would probably say there is probably don't need that. You probably don't need the highlighting, or sorry, you don't need to mention things up in the summary if you're going to highlight them here in the skills block. So I would just say substantial hands-on experience in object-oriented programming. So I would take out all of these words that I've got highlighted here and just say substantial hands-on experience in object-oriented programming, developing, testing, and debugging code. Although that starts to get a little bit long. You do put a semicolon in here, and then you're just listing other things. Semicolon is meant to kind of split a thought, but you're not really carrying on a thought. You're just listing more things. And developing, testing, debugging, designing interfaces, administering systems and networks. This is starting to get away from full stack development. Full stack, I think of as like back-end development, front-end development, where getting into like system administration and networks, this is more DevOps. So if you're looking for a DevOps role, then you'll highlight that. If you're looking for a development role, I would take this out. It's kind of neat to know that you know these things, but I don't think it's going to be critical to a company that you mentioned this in part of that opening summary. Quick and eager learner, willing to take initiatives to learn job-related skills. I would take this out completely. This is going to be an expectation. You don't have to say that you take initiative and you learn job-related skills. Like, you better learn job-related skills or you're not going to have this job very long. So I would just take that sentence out completely. Proficient using creative problem-solving skills to efficiently solve problems. So you just told me problem-solving skills to solve problems. So you're getting redundant here. Proficient using creative problem-solving skills working in a team. So I would take out the words to efficiently solve problems. Because you're saying proficient and efficient, and you've got problem solving to solve problems. So a lot of redundant words in here. If you really want to leave this in here, I would say proficient at creative problem solving skills and teamwork or something like that. But I think you could take some of this stuff out. Cool. Let's dive in on the skills block. So I like that you've got the skills block up here at the top. LinkedIn, I would make sure you've got a capital L, capital I on LinkedIn. I would just put like GitHub account or something like that instead of github.com as far as the link to your GitHub profile. For the skills block, I like that you've got kind of all your languages grouped together. I would probably take currently learning off and just leave TypeScript at the end. And if they're looking for somebody that knows TypeScript, they're going to look at this and go, okay, you've got a lot of experience in JavaScript and Node. You do have TypeScript on there, so it will hit on that keyword. But currently learning kind of, it sort of weakens having that on the resume. So I would take those words off and just say you know it. They'll interview you if they care about how much TypeScript you know. They'll prompt you with questions and they'll make a determination about how much of that you know and whether it's sufficient or not. But I would take those words off. React Express, .NET 6, Spring, Selenium, GraphQL. Yep, those are all fine. Although most of these are frameworks except for Selenium and GraphQL. So yeah, I would leave it as libraries. That's fine. For databases, you've only got two things listed here. So one thing you could do is combine libraries and databases and just put the databases at the end of the line. Tools is missing an L. So Git and GitHub, Trello, VS Code. Take editors off of here. Nobody cares what editors you use. They're not going to look at that and go, oh, we should hire this person because they use VS Code. Like, they're going to hire you because of the programming languages that you use and the kinds of databases you have familiarity with, but they're not going to care what editors you use. They want to know you can get the job done, but they're not going to care how. TDD, Agile, Waterfall, Object-Oriented Design, MVC. Yep. MVC is not a methodology though. MVC is what we call a design pattern. And so that doesn't really fit in methodologies. .NET is an MVC framework. I get that you've got it on there for like keyword. I would probably find a way to like talk about that as part of a project or something, like developed using the MVC design pattern or something like that, instead of like adding that as a methodology, because MVC is not a methodology. So I would probably change that up. All right, so tech experience. So currently mutational hotspot detector in Winnipeg. Interesting. Project lead for a team of 4 for creating a full stack app for the department's graduate students. You've got multiple spaces in here. You can take out one of those spaces. Tech stack, C#, .NET, Blazor. So one thing is you mentioned .NET 6. You've got .NET 6, but here it's .NET 6.0. So I'd probably be consistent about that and either take off the 0.0 down here when you're talking about your tech experience, or make sure you've got .0 on these other mentions. Although I think I did recommend like don't mention the technologies in that summary. You mentioned Blazor here, but you actually don't mention it as one of your skills. JavaScript, React, Bootstrap. Again, you also don't have Bootstrap up here. C and C++ you also don't have up here. So if you have used these, I would list them as skills. If these are things that the team has used but not you, I would take them off the resume. Otherwise, they're going to look at this and go, oh, you also know C++. And if you don't know C++, then they're going to start suspecting other things. But down here, you created dynamic link libraries for running C++ code. So that tells me you know a little bit of C++, so why not list that as a language? So just making sure that things are consistent that way. Utilized open source library chart.js for graphing capabilities in the app. Yep, that's fine. I would make sure you got a space in here. Utilized open source library space chart.js. Automated 2 key steps in the process, reducing the user involvement by 33%. This is a great impact statement, and I've talked a lot about these in recent streams. Like saying I did a thing is good on a resume, but saying I did a thing and this is why that matters is way better. So I like that you actually have a good impact statement on here. Design new algorithms for comparing DNA protein sequences from a specific file format. Okay. Created DLLs. Identified potential roadblocks and key moments of the life cycle, ensuring 95% deadline adherence. That's a lot of words to say you went over on time. Well, does that mean, wait, so this is where wording can be confusing. Sethi, are you saying here that you were able to get everything done in 95% of the time? Or that you ensured that 95% of the deadline was met? Like you like 95% of the project met the deadline and then a little bit of it went over? This is where it's a little bit confusing. So you might want to, there was only one issue where one deadline was missed. Okay. So I would probably reword that a little bit and say ensuring 95% of the project met deadline or something like that. Applied computer science, June. Relevant coursework. Yeah, all this looks fine. What's interesting though is you've got this role from August 2021 to May 2022. You graduated in 2022. You graduated after you left this job. So some people are going to look at this and go, that timeline seems odd. Like you were working at this job while you were going to school, or was this an internship that just lasted a really long time? Like August through May, September, October, November, August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May. I mean, it's 10 months that you were at that job. Was that an internship or was it a part-time job? That question may come up. It was senior systems project. Okay, so you're by looking at it like this though, it kind of reads as though this was job experience, like this was professional job experience. So were you paid for this or was this project based? Because if it's project based and it's like one of these projects down here, then that's different. Although these look like different projects. I would probably just call this project experience instead of tech experience because I was looking at this going, okay, you've actually been working full time. It was a project, but it was graded by the university. Again, like it needs to be really clear on the resume if this was a project for school, if it was a project because it kind of looks like it was a project for another company, but you're listing it as tech experience and not project experience. If this was a project for school and you didn't get paid, then it's kind of project experience. And I think you need to be careful that you're not misrepresenting like what the project was about or what this experience was about. It was for a client, which is still being used. Okay. Okay. I think as long as you can really clearly explain what that was and say, while I was in school, I was doing this project for this company, like a bunch of us students got together and we worked on this project, and then I went and I wrapped up school. I think that that's okay. But you can kind of see how, like, even as a hiring manager, I'm reading over this going, huh? Other people are also going to be looking at that resume going, this doesn't line up, like what's going on with this. And so it has to be really clear this was the expectation. This is what I did. This is who I did it for. I see Black Deep is suggesting something industry partner, maybe. Because this said that you were building a project for the department's graduate students, so it sounds like you were doing this as a project for the school. Mutational hotspot detector. This is the name of the project, I'm guessing. Because like normally when you list tech experience, you're like, this is my role, this is the company, and this is where they were located, and this is when I worked there. This now feels like this was my role. This was the name of the project. Because down here, when you're talking about your projects, your project name is in bold, not your role on the team. So again, this is where like consistency is really going to matter. I would still probably call this project experience and just group all of the projects together and put your education down here at the bottom. I think that it'll make more sense for people to see like, okay, this was a project that you worked on. And you know, certainly what you're writing in chat, you could still apply on here saying, you know, this is still in use by 50 users. You know, it's still an ongoing project, you know, etc. You could mention that as a bullet point. I think that would totally be okay. And then put your other projects under it. But stay consistent with how you're laying these out. Because down here, you've got the name of the project. I would take off currently working. Just say it's a solo project. Again, if you can put like a GitHub repo or something like that on here where I can actually go see the code or go experience what you built. If you can deploy it in some way, that always is better. And then, you know, you're giving a good user statement and things like that. So again, if you could do that for this project as well, because you're talking about you made a full stack app for the department, but you don't actually say what it's for until you get way down here that it's something about DNA protein sequencing. So I would try to make all the projects look the same, and I would just bundle all this together as project experience. The fact that you did this for 10 months, like normally I would say like on projects, don't put the dates on here. In this case, it makes sense because you did this project for 10 months. So in this case, you do want it to look like we did this for a long time. The name of the project is Mutational Hotspot Detector and something that had documentation. Okay. So yeah, I would just make all the projects look the same, group them all together, call this project experience instead, and then just move your education down underneath that. Other experience, again, this part's wrapping onto a second page. It's up to you whether you want to keep that. I think you've got actually enough project work and education here that having this role on here may not be may not be as vital. I mean, you've been there for a long time. You've been there for 3 years. So that shows a good history of like, I was working and I was in school and I was doing this project stuff. So it shows that you're able to juggle a lot of things. I would reduce this bullet point down to um, less words. Basically, I would keep about this many words that I have highlighted and get rid of the rest. Um, you don't have to go into a lot of description as a sales associate. Help customers by finding them suitable, tailored options for them to go with their current fitness goals. And apart from that, successfully achieved weekly. I would just say help customers find fitness products and achieved weekly and monthly sales targets, and get rid of all the other words. There's like you're adding a lot of extra words in here that don't. It's not that they don't mean anything, but it's kind of what we call filler. Like you're adding words to make it take up space. And on a resume, you want to do the opposite. You want to take out words so it takes up less time to read, but still get the point across of what you did. So what I would do is I would reword all of this and just say, helped customers find fitness products and achieved weekly and monthly sales targets, and just leave it at that. As far as the other project layout goes, again, stay consistent with your layout. You've got all of your other dates over on that right margin, so I would move those over to the right margin as well. This one's kind of to the right of the name of the project, but like get those over on the margin. Users can play songs using Spotify capital S, to utilize the data and display it in the UI, consuming a RESTful API in JavaScript. First project, consuming a RESTful API in JavaScript. Okay. So yeah, these are generally okay, like saying it's a solo project and so on. Again, just make sure the layout is kind of consistent, where the name of the project is in bold. If it's a solo project, make sure that's probably not bold. I would take off the currently working. Like it sounds like you're still working on this as a project, but I would just take that off and just say it's a solo project. Put the links in for GitHub, and if you've got it deployed somewhere, that they can go see it. Cool. All right, so that's the resume. Let's hop over to your LinkedIn, and we'll do a review over there as well. Close these down. All right. Software developer interested in distributed systems using Java and Node. Okay. I like the background image here. This background image is really cool. Picture's a really clear picture of you. It's easy to kind of see like who you are, what you look like. You also know Bakari. How about that? So Bakari is going to be on the stream on Sunday. Open to work, providing services. Okay. So so notice in here that it's actually cutting off some of what you're writing in here. So that's the first thing you want to take a look at, is like, how many characters is this? I'm actually going to copy and paste this into an editor. And it cut off right there. So it's giving you 357 bytes. It's a very weird number. But it's giving you 357 bytes. What you want to do is you want to end the sentence right there. So that it looks like, this is the end of my thought, and then they see the see more link or whatever that they can go in and expand it. But right now it's cutting off the word JavaScript. But you want these first couple of sentences to really have an impact on, like, this is who I am, this is the kind of job I'm looking for. An action-oriented software engineer. I'm not looking for a superhero. I'm not looking for, Superman or Spider-Gwen or anybody like that to be on my team. So action-oriented. I can see from a business perspective why those buzzwords are helpful. But again, I think you're adding filler words here that don't need to be here. You've already told me up here you're a software developer. And in Canada, engineer is like, you've actually got to be registered as an engineer to call yourself an engineer. So if you're actually registering with the Canadian authority to actually be an engineer, then you can keep engineer on here. But just be aware of that in Canada. Recent grad from the University of Winnipeg, majoring in applied computer science with an increasing interest in learning and application of back-end technologies. So I would take some of this stuff off and just say majoring in applied computer science and application and back-end application development. But take off like I have an interest in, because you are a back-end developer. So you don't have to use words like I have an interest in this thing. It's like you're already doing that thing. So just take those words out and just call yourself a back-end developer. Quick and eager learner. I would take this off. Willing to take initiative and learn job-related skills. Again, we talked about that on the resume. You can take that out. Responsibilities independently with coding experience in JavaScript. And again, you're listing off these things. Now, in this case, in the About section, it's okay to fill the bottom part of this with those keywords of JavaScript and Node and C# and .NET and Blazor and like all those other technologies, because the search engine of LinkedIn is going to look at this entire About section. But when we loaded this up and we only see the first 357 bytes of that string, that's where you need to catch a human's interest and like really be like really grab their eye with like, this is who I am, this is what I want to do. And so what I would suggest is for that first 350 bytes, you really need to sell them on, I'm a grad, I'm looking for a new job. These are the industries where I'm interested, and this is the kind of impact that I've had in my projects. Like you want to try to get as much of that into 350 bytes as possible. And then if they do click on the see more link, then you can describe a little bit more about, like, talk about your projects, talk about the technologies that you've used, things like that, because you've got, I think, 5,000 bytes or something that you can type in here total, but only the first 350 are going to show up. When we load this page for the first time, we only see the first 357 bytes. And so you want to get rid of all the fluff out of here and just say, this is who I am, this is what I'm interested in doing, these are the skills that I have, and just get their attention with that. And that'll entice them to click on that see more link. Antonio, good to see you in chat as well. Cool. And then you've got your featured resume. So again, like, just brush up the resume, re-upload it. I like that you've got activity on here. It's good to see people that are actually interacting, leaving comments and leaving leaving reactions and things like that on other people's posts. I think that's fine. Again, you're kind of listing this like job experience. You're listing it as full-time contract. So again, my question is, were you actually paid for this, or was this just project work for school? Because saying that it was a contract role is going to lead other people to believe that this was paid experience, it's professional experience, and that's very different than how they're going to treat project-based experience. So if you didn't get paid, then don't list it as a contract full-time role. It's fine if you were full-time, but you weren't a contract employee. Like, you're making this look like you were a contract employee, and that the name of the company was this mutual hotspot detector, which isn't a company. Like, you were actually doing this for the school, I think is what you were saying. So I think you need to be careful about misrepresenting yourself, because people are going to look at that and go, okay, you were working, but then you graduated. Like, again, as a hiring manager, I look at this and go, that timeline doesn't line up. It doesn't match up. So a lot of what I said that applied to the resume, I think, is going to apply here as well. Listing this as professional experience is a little bit misleading. So I think you do need to be careful about that. And then again, you've got good impact statements in here. So, add more impact statements on here if you can. And then for the skills block down here, you've got a couple of endorsements. Reach out to your project team and be like, hey, if you're on LinkedIn, I really need endorsements for these things. ASP.NET, algorithms, teamwork. You've got 23 skills in here. So have other students come in here and endorse you for these things based on the projects and so on that you've done. And then whichever ones get the most endorsements, like, move those up to the top. Or whichever technologies, like if you're going to go look for a JavaScript job, move all the JavaScript stuff up to the top of the skills block here, so that people can see, like, oh, okay, other people are endorsing you for JavaScript experience or React experience, things like that. Creative Null says, if I'm freelancing, would that be experience or under projects in LinkedIn? If you're freelancing and you're getting paid for it, that would be experience. if you're just working on projects, like I think there's a spot in LinkedIn where you can add like projects and stuff that you're working on, and that's kind of this featured section here, and you can feature your projects in here. You can talk about them a little bit in the about section, but I would add them to this featured section. And I would definitely be posting your own messages about like, hey, here's this project that I made. I'd love other people's input and feedback. Reach out to other senior devs, ask them like, hey, can you code review like this little bit of code? Don't give them the whole project and say, can you code review this whole thing? Because nobody will. But if you say like, hey, is there any way that I could make this database look up a little bit faster? Could you look at just this little bit of code and tell me if you could optimize this one little bit and like see if you can get like small code reviews from people. People are usually pretty happy to like go in and look at a very specific bit of code and help you improve it. Cool. All right, so that's review number 1. Oz Muffins. Let's call you Oz for now. I'm pretty new, so I don't think that would be great though. Oh, sorry. What's up? I saw you in one of the Discord channels I'm in. I'm hoping I could get my resume reviewed. Yeah, absolutely. Yep, we're doing a bunch of resume reviews, so go check out the link up here, and we'll get that in. If anybody else wants a resume review, you're welcome to drop those in as well. Send those over, and we'll get through as many as we can tonight. The next one is Natty, who hangs out in chat. I don't know if they're in chat tonight. Now we're back to normal. It's repeating my comment to creative null over and over. Weird. Don't know. All right, I think we got a new follow. Antonio Coding, yeah, thanks for the follow. Appreciate that. It's good to know the bot works again. So any new follow we get, it'll blink all the lights back here. I don't know whether it's got the RAID code and stuff in there. I need to do that. All right, so in the multinational hotspot detector on LinkedIn, I'm only seeing self-employed, internship, or co-op, seasonal, or permanent. So that's the thing, though. This isn't professional experience. It was project experience. So that's where I was saying, like, I think you're misrepresenting yourself by calling it employment. Yes, it was full-time effort, but it was full-time project effort. It was a full-time project. It wasn't like you weren't a contract employee. It wasn't a job. You were building a project for school. So it wasn't a contract position. Like, it's not any of those. I mean, maybe you could call it an internship or a co-op. Maybe co-op would be more applicable on that one because it is kind of a co-op placement. It is kind of internship, but it's not employment. Like if you were getting paid for it, it would be employment. And that's where I was saying, like, I think you're misrepresenting yourself by calling it professional experience or like listing it as actual job experience because it was a project that you were building. So I would be careful about misrepresenting yourself there. Antonio says, I'm new to coding. I did the Leon 100 devs, and I need to make an account in LinkedIn. There's a great video on YouTube. Yeah, definitely make a LinkedIn account. Absolutely. LinkedIn is going to be really, really beneficial. You're welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn. So I use the same username on Twitch as well as on LinkedIn. So when you make an account on LinkedIn, feel free to send me a connection request. And then anything you post, I'll do my best to go in and like add reactions and add comments and stuff when I have time during the day. So any kind of project that you build, any project work, things like that, like post about that stuff on LinkedIn and get people noticing it. It'll make a big difference as far as like giving you visibility and letting recruiters find you and so on. Can you tell me something about myself? Yeah, I've been in the tech industry for 26 years. I've been a hiring manager. I've been a director of engineering. I've held a second like director level role around education. I've been a software teacher myself, similar to Leon. I taught at a code school here in the Colorado region in the United States for about 4 years. Currently a developer advocate, so I still deal a lot with technical education, but that basically means I'm writing blog posts, making videos, going to conferences and doing tech talks, running workshops and things like that, and live streaming. This live stream, though, is my own personal live stream, so that's me. But yeah, welcome to the stream. Welcome to the community. I've also got a Discord community of my own if you want to come check that out. Do I stream often? I stream usually twice a week. So usually Thursday night right now, and then I stream on Sunday mornings. And Sunday morning we'll have we're gonna have a guest on the stream, and we'll we'll talk a little bit more about Bakari a little bit later. All right, so let's get resume 4. All right, so we did resume number 1. We've got 4 resumes total. Again, if you want to get a resume review in, you're absolutely welcome to. The next one that we're going to do here is Natty. So Natty hangs out with us in chat from time to time. They were here for a lot of the giveaways. Antonio says, I'm on vacation until May, so I use all the time to learn to code and may get a job. Oh, and get a job next May. I got you. Okay. I mean, the sooner you start networking with companies, though, the better. So start networking with companies now and keep working on projects. And then while you're in contact with those companies, let them know about the projects that you're making and keep them up to date on like, hey, this is like the latest thing that I built, and this was the new part of the project that I added, and so on. That will drastically help. It'll help quite a lot, just to sort of stay noticed by them, or as we call it, like sort of stay on their radar. Which just, you know, when they get to a point where they're like, hey, we have this entry level role, we should go call that Antonio coding person. So, hey, Reese Goldman X, good to see you. We have no more giveaways. The giveaways were just for the month of October, but thanks for coming by. We're all done with giveaways. We'll probably do more giveaways in the new year. Sorry, I need to go fix a light bulb. I'll be back in like 30 seconds. The bulb was flashing like ridiculously over in another area of where I sit, and it was super distracting all the time. Alrighty. Heisenballs, I totally missed your Prime sub. I appreciate that. Thank you for the Prime subscription. Any subs and bits and things like that, they all go into the tech fundraiser up here. So I appreciate that. Any money I make as a streamer all goes into this pot of money. Private resume reviews, if you want a private resume review, if you are currently working in the industry, I do charge money for them. If you're coming out of a code school, or if you're self-taught, or if you're unemployed, then I don't charge money for it. But any money that you do pay for a resume review also goes into that pot of money. And then I match all of that money. So I'm adding that much more money into that. And then we're going to give all that away at the end of the year. And I've got a group picked out that we're going to give that money to. So they're where are they based? They're based in Minnesota. Cool. All right. Thanks for the new follow, Oxzy. I'll call you Ozzy if that's all right. Yeah. Thanks for that. I made the giveaways a habit. Yeah, for sure. A whole bunch of people showed up, and the first thing they do in my chat is like, "Bang, giveaway." We will. Oh, I know why. It's because I've got it in the title. Silly me. Let me remove that from my title and update that. Yeah, we'll do more giveaways in the new year. I kind of wind down towards the end of the year because my kids do a lot of 3D printing for like an event that they have at their school, and so I need to kind of reserve the 3D printers for them for the next month, and then usually over the holidays I like take them apart and tune them up and things like that, and then in the new year we'll do more giveaways. So, Antonio says I'm not here for the giveaways. A lot of people are. So now Creative Null is just trolling me. I'm just curious what's going on. Love the energy. Awesome. Well, I appreciate that. So I love just helping people out with interview preparation and career advice and things like that. I've been in the industry for a long, long time. This is the third like major tech layoff kind of thing that I'm seeing over my career and enduring. It's different than the other two for a lot of reasons. We talked a lot about that last week on the stream. But yeah, tonight we're just doing a whole bunch of resume reviews, so we'll dive in. We got a bunch more. Again, if you want a resume review, you're welcome to send it in, and I'll keep an eye on my inbox. So I'm not part of 100 Devs, but I really like what 100 Devs is doing, and so I want to support them as much as I can. I was in their Discord community, and I was chatting about an email newsletter thing that I authored, and apparently I advertised it in the wrong channel, and because I have 736 on the end of my name, they thought I was a bot, and they just banned my account. And I put in an unban request, and it just never went anywhere. I never heard back from them. So I'm wondering if they think the unban request also came from a bot. I have no idea. I've tried reaching out to Leon. I've tried reaching out to other admins and mods, and nobody can help me. And Leon's just not answering me. Maybe now that the program's over, maybe Leon will have time to get back to his DMs or something. I don't know. But I just want to help people out. You know, I want to help out with career advice and interview prep and things like that. Do resume reviews. Again, just from my own perspective as a hiring manager, these are things that I look at. So yeah, I just want to help people out. So hopefully one day they'll let me back in their Discord community. In the meantime, I got my own. You're welcome to drop by Discord. And if you want to check out the email newsletters that I've got, you can go check out that link. And there are basically 3 newsletters you could subscribe to. One is just general tips. One is about technical questions. One is about behavioral questions. But I wrote them in a way for the technical and behavioral questions where it's not here's how to answer it perfectly. I wrote those newsletters in a way that basically addresses, this is why we ask you these questions. Like when I ask you to tell me about yourself, I go in and explain like what we're actually, like this is what we actually want you to talk about. This is why we're asking you this question. This is why it's important to us as a company. And so I do that on all the behavioral questions and the technical questions. I don't teach you how to answer it perfectly. I just tell you our motivation for asking the question in the first place. And I think that it gives you a bit of a peek into the hiring manager's mind so that you can come up with a better answer instead of just regurgitating and re-explaining, what every other career advice, column out there is going to tell you to say. I think understanding the motivation of what is it we really want to hear, I think will make a big difference. So cool. Yeah, definitely check it out. They're free. There's no ads on any of my stuff. There's also the whole website, techinterview.guide. You can go check out everything on there. It's totally free. I don't charge money for any of it, so go check it out. And feel free to share it with others too. I'd appreciate any sharing of that on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. If you find something helpful, please feel free to share it with other people. All right, let's get back to the resume reviews. Let's go back over to here. Close this down, and we'll go back over to here. All right, so this is Natty. Natty does hang out in our chat from time to time, so I'm going to go ahead and start a new clip for that. And the stuff that you're going to see in chat about the clip is just so I auto record these things and split up the videos so that these will process on YouTube as separate videos. So. All right, so the second resume came in from one of our users here on Twitch, and they were asking for just a general review. Now, they're not in the United States, so the format of their resume is going to be a little bit different, and this is more like the CV format that we would see. But I'm going to share a lot of similar thoughts and talk a little bit about what we need to see on here. Overall, from a layout point of view, it's a pretty easy to read layout. It does go into 2 pages, but again, with a CV layout, a curriculum vitae layout, it is expected to be more than 1 page. The European CV has changed over the years. It used to be multiple pages. Now recruiters are like, 2 pages maximum. If you can get it down to 1 page like the United States, that would be great. In other parts of the world, they do want to see a lot of information about you. And there is actually a lot of information on here that we would normally not ever see on a resume because of laws and so on. In this case, we do see their email, their phone number. Please don't bug them about that. They do have their LinkedIn on here. As much as possible on LinkedIn, try to get rid of these random numbers. You can go in and you can rename your profile to get rid of these random numbers on the end of your name. So try to do that. In this case, they've also got Facebook. Their LinkedIn is a link. Their email is a link, but their Facebook is not, and their Twitter is not. So try to be consistent about that. If you're going to make things links, then keep them links all over the place. And then for the objective here is quite long. Highly resourceful, innovative, and competent front-end dev with considerable experience. So putting words like considerable experience can be a little bit misleading because when I look at that, I'm already thinking, oh, you've been doing this for like 5+ years. Because to me, that would be considerable experience. Experience in the layout, design, and coding of websites specifically. I would take off the word specifically and say like web applications or something like that. Possessing considerable knowledge. Again, you're repeating words, so take the word considerable out of there. Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator, InDesign, website and graphic design. This is good if a company needs that information. I often talk on the stream about like when you're designing out your resume and trying to decide what to put on your resume. I usually tell people make a really big resume, like make it way bigger than you need it to be, and put all kinds of skills, all kinds of languages, and projects and previous jobs, and like it's going to be way more than a page, or in the case of a CV, way more than 2 pages. But when you're ready to actually apply for a job, you're going to take out stuff that company's not going to care about, and you're going to bring it back down to that desired length. So in this case, if Natty was looking for a job that was actual like front end design and front end development, then what I've got highlighted here would actually make sense to leave on the resume or on the CV because they're gonna want to know that you've got experience using design tools. If, on the other hand, you want to get a programming job, I would take this sentence out completely because no one looking at this is going, oh, you're a programmer and you happen to know Adobe Photoshop? That's amazing. They're going to look at that and go, why are you telling me about Photoshop? I'm trying to hire you as a programmer. So keeping the relevant things on the resume is going to help bring that back down to one page to where when they read your resume, they're going to see how much relevant experience you bring to their company because that's what's going to really win them over. Experienced in cloud computing, developing applications and solutions for a wide range of corporate, charity, public sector clients, and having the enthusiasm and ambition to complete projects to the highest standard. This is a lot of words. Looking forward to work as part of a team within a successful. I would take this out completely. So this is what I call an ask. This last sentence here is saying, this is what I'm looking for. But you don't want that on a resume. A resume is a list of this is what I bring to you. And that's all the resume should be, is this is what I'm bringing. And nothing else. These are the skills I have. These are the projects that I've done. This is the impact that I can make at your company. End of story. But putting something on here like, I want to be a part of a team within a successful and dynamic company that offers great career progression and long-term career prospects, like you're asking for something. And I would take that off the resume. By applying for the job, you're asking them for the job, but you don't need to ask for anything on the resume. So I would take that off completely. For their experience. So this job was only a couple of months long. So August through February, that's what, 7 months? August, September, well, end of August through the end of February. So September, October, November, December, January, February. So 6 months at this job. Website reporter, content creator. Okay, so you were there for 6 months. You were here for about a year. You were here for about 2 years. Layout design expert, but design is spelled wrong. Broadcast digital and print media outlets, but this wasn't like programming experience, and neither was this. So you're doing graphics design. Again, design doesn't have an E on the end of it. So the only one so far, well, you call yourself website reporter, but you're not really talking about programming experience here. Local language and broadcast expert, and then communication, a website expert, but you don't really explain what you did at that job. And then you were a teacher, ICT officer, information communication technology infrastructure, okay, at a hotel. And then private limited company CEO and service provider responsible for customer service delivery, okay. So none of this is actually programming experience. Like when I look at this, none of this stands out as I am a web developer. This is all professional experience, but none of this is web development experience. And so to come up here and say I have considerable experience in building websites, like the layout, the design, and coding of websites, you don't show me any of that in your experience here. You show me that you've got all these skills over here. and we'll get into on some of that in a minute, but none of your experience here speaks to any of that because none of this is actually programming experience. If we come down to page 2, this is your education. I would say if you've got an education in computer science and you've been doing these other things, I would also list these in reverse chronological order. So the newest thing should be first. I would actually put your education and your project work on page 1 because then at least you look like a developer who happens to have all of this other interesting design experience. But right now, you're telling me that you're a developer, and if you apply for a programming job, I don't see that on any of page 1 other than the skills block over here. I've got to go all the way down to the bottom of page 2 to see that you've done some software development. So get that up on page 1. That would be my first bit of advice here. Creative Null says in chat, I'd say the ICT officer can also do some programming, but it is a very generic job title. I agree. But again, you're not describing what you did at the job. You just said you were responsible for ICT infrastructure, but you don't really explain what ICT infrastructure is. Plus, it was, you were there for a long time. You were there for 6 years, but you don't describe like what technologies you used or anything like that. Also, the font sizes are very different in here too. Like the font size in here changes and goes to a larger font. So again, just come through, make everything in here the same font size. Just for readability purpose, it will read a little bit better. Make sure that your dates are capitalized properly. I would also move those dates over to the right edge if possible, get them out of the way. And I would give a lot more description about what you did at these roles. And describe, like highlight, like if any of these did do programming experience, I would actually list that as like programming experience, and then everything that was design, I would list as like design experience. Just so it's a little bit easier to anybody else reading this, like at this job I did programming, at this job I did graphic design. I think it, and maybe just other, where you put in like your teaching role and things like that, that were neither. But to call yourself a website expert, like you don't describe what you do there. Were you using these technologies or were you just doing HTML? Like, it's really unclear like what you did at that job. And yes, to some degree, that is the point of the interview, is for us to find that out. The other thing I would probably do is put your contact information on page 2. And then from a contrast point of view, in today's realm, in today's world, people are definitely going to get a digital copy of this. But if they have to print this out, all this black ink that you're using over here is going to use up a lot of printer toner and printer ink. I would probably make this like a gray or something instead of like dark black. I think the contrast works okay. The colors work okay. But one of the things that we were talking about, like the difference between a North American resume and resumes that we see in other parts of the world, is we don't see any of this stuff right here. We wouldn't see a date of birth. We wouldn't see whether you're married or not. In North America, it's actually illegal to ask whether you're married. It's illegal for us to ask your nationality. We don't care about your blood type. Like that really doesn't matter to anybody. So in other parts of the world, though, this stuff is expected. So knowing where you're applying will make a big difference. If you're applying for a job in an area of the world where this is going to be an expectation, then you're going to need to put that kind of stuff on a resume or on a CV. In this case, if Natty was applying for a job in North America, people would be like, oh, get that off the resume. Like, I don't need to know that you're single, because that shouldn't have a bearing on whether you should get a job or not. So I think you could probably reduce some of the text in here based on what kind of job you're applying for. And then for the experience in here, just making sure that you're explaining what you did at the job. Like where did you actually do web development? Like, where did you actually use these skills that you claim to know over here? And then checking for spelling and stuff like that. Like development is spelled wrong. You're missing letters and letters are out of order. Python is spelled wrong. So just, go through really carefully and make sure that everything is spelled correctly and capitalized correctly. Because those kinds of things are what we call attention to detail. And we want to know that, especially as a programmer, attention to detail is going to be really important. When you're a designer, attention to detail is very important. And by making mistakes like that on a resume or on a CV, it's going to stand out as like, maybe that's not the kind of person we want to hire. So just general feedback there. But overall, like I said, the layout is okay. I would move the projects and then education and then experience. Now, again, if any of this experience is actually programming, then you need to call that out, and I would leave that first. So I would leave any kind of programming experience and then your projects and then, education and then other jobs or whatever under that. So I would probably rearrange the order of these things a little bit. But overall, I think the layout is fine. The contrast of the white text on black is a bit harsh. Some people will have a hard time reading it, but yeah, that would be my thoughts there. And also in North America, we wouldn't expect to see a picture on the resume, just your name and your contact info. Mr. Wolford Stepp, appreciate the Amazon Prime sub. Thank you for that. So all the Prime subs, all the bits, and so on, those are all going into the pot of money that we'll see up on this screen. So it's all going to go into that pot of money, and I'm going to match all that. So appreciate that. Thank you so much for that. Appreciate that you only get one Twitch streamer to give that Twitch subscription to every month. So I appreciate that. That was me. Appreciate that very much. Thank you. All right, cool. Let's see. Did I miss anything else in chat? I think I saw a message from Ozzy. What's your opinion of someone who's going to get a part-time job and also doing the job hunt process? Will that hurt them? Let's chat about that. So we had a question from Ozzy come in chat asking, what's your opinion of someone who is going to work part-time and also doing a job hunt? Is that going to hurt their chances? I actually had a chat with a mentee this afternoon about this exact thing. They've been on the job hunt for a while, and they're at a point now where it's like, I just got to go get any kind of job. So I'm going to go back to like what I did before I went to school. They went through a code school, and they're like, I just need to go get any job. I got bills to pay. I got to buy food and whatever. I'm like, okay, cool. Do that. And they're like, well, how do I explain that on a resume? I'm like, don't put it on the resume. That's the simplest thing. It's just don't put it on the resume. If people are asking like, what are you doing? How are you filling your time? You can say, I went back to work at, whatever part-time job or full-time job because I had bills to pay. I've got student loans to pay and so on. And so I'm doing that while I'm job hunting. Now, trying to juggle a job and a job hunt at the same time is tricky. It's hard to do. I'm not going to lie. The job hunt is already hard enough. Adding a job on top of that is going to make it even harder. And you're going to have to figure out a way to juggle, how do I actually do interviews if I'm working? Because finding a job is kind of a full-time job in its own, with networking with people and responding back to them in a timely manner. If you're working part-time, then it may not be as big of an issue as this other person I was speaking with that wants to go back and work full-time and try to find a job. I'm like, you can, but how are you going to do interviews and how are you going to try to figure out getting out and making phone calls and stuff like that if you're working full time at a job where they're going to be like actively engaged and tracked on metrics of, how they're doing their job? It's going to be much harder to like step out and take a phone call to talk to a recruiter and so on. And so it's going to complicate their life a little bit. If you're only doing it part time though, I think it'll be a little bit easier to kind of juggle that and manage that. But I would say make sure that you're spending your time very wisely as far as how and when you're letting people know that you're available to speak. Like I would say in your cover letters, for example, say I'm available any afternoon after 2 p.m. If you're going to work part-time, like in the mornings or something, and say I'm available after 2 p.m. every day, then they know when they can call you. Or if they do try to call while you're working at your part-time job, they kind of already have an expectation that you're not going to call them back until after 2 p.m. because that's when you said you were available to talk. So figure out what that's going to look like and make sure that you're letting recruiters know or whoever you're talking to that you're working part-time, you're looking for a job, and that you're not like immediately available for a phone call at a moment's notice, that you might need to step away from something and call them back in a little bit. And I think as long as you set that expectation with recruiters, they're going to be okay with that. So no, I don't think it's going to hurt you at all. I think in today's economy, especially, people are going to understand, even people that are choosing to look for another job, they're still also working full time or, mostly full time or whatever at their job, and they're trying to like prep for another job. And recruiters understand that. So no, it doesn't look bad at all. I wouldn't worry about that. Cool. Let's see what else we got here. Mr. Wolford Step, donations also going to that fundraiser gap. So any resume review money, any donations, any bits, any subs, any cheers, all of that stuff all goes into that pot of money. And then it's not dynamic. So if you donate something and I'm not watching my email, then I don't update it. But if you do send something in over PayPal, then I'll absolutely add that in there. Cheered 5,000 bits. Holy cow! Thank you. That's amazing. So I do prefer bits over subs because I get almost all of the bits and then I match all of that money. So that 5,000 bits, that's like $50. Wow, that's awesome. Thank you for that. I'm gonna match that. Surprise! I'm gonna match that $50. So thank you. That makes a huge impact. Thank you. Thank you. Wow, that's awesome. Jen asked in chat, is there a specific font that should be used on resumes? No, I typically tell people stay with a sans serif font, like an Arial or a Helvetica or something. It's a little bit easier to read than a serif font like Times New Roman. So I would stay with a sans serif font. And I generally say you get 3 font sizes on the whole page. So set everything to 10-point font as a default, and then go back and set your name to like 18-point font. And then all of the headers like education and things like that, set that to like 12 or 14, but leave everything else on the page 10-point font. And then you can add a little bit of bold here and there. Yeah. Let's see. Did I miss anything else in chat? Jen says, I got to learn how to do that. So the whole clip thing, that was all part of the chatbot that I wrote and like figuring out how to like process those clips in real time. So I can help you with that if you want. It's a bit of a process, but let's see. I don't think I missed anything else. If I missed a question, please feel free to just repost the question. Whip says, I started a part-time job recently, found out they offer tuition reimbursement, so I decided to take advantage of it and going back to school next month. That's amazing. That's awesome, Whip. Good for you. I think that's a great idea. Definitely take up your company on any sort of benefit or any sort of perk like that to better yourself in some way. That's fantastic. Good for you. As a minority myself in tech, I got to support those kinds of initiatives. I appreciate that. So let's build a chatbot on the stream. I mean, we could start to build a chatbot on the stream for sure. Let's chat a little bit about who that donation money is going to. So I'll take a break from resume reviews. I've got 2 more to do. So Jen, I think yours is up next. So we'll get to that in a sec. Let me go to here and to here, and we'll pull these in into here. And let's go back over to here. All right, so this is the group that's going to get our donation money at the end of the year. It's a group called Girls Dream Code, and they're based in Minnesota, Woodbury, Minnesota. I actually went through and I actually had to scrutinize quite a few groups to make sure that I could find a group who has a primary goal with the idea of increasing diversity in tech. A lot of them are like, we are a code school and we help people get jobs in tech. And if you happen to be an underrepresented group, then great. This group specifically is empowering like youth. And also, here we go. So change the norm. Women only make up 25% of the tech workforce. Women of color only make up 12% of that. Gender and diversity gap is still a work in progress, and that's what this organization hopes to address. This is their primary mission. And I'm like, okay, you're getting that donation money. They don't know that yet, so like don't email them and tell them. I like it to be a surprise. But when we look, like I also like to go find their their charity registration forms and look at how they spend their money and what kind of money they get. And check this out right here: contributions, gifts, and grants. They got $150 back in 2020. That was it. They've only been around a couple of years, but that year they barely got any income at all. And so when you kind of go through all of this, you can find out like who are your employees? They have none. They have none employees. Um, and so I was taking a look through this, going, okay, well they have people that teach, they have people that are organizing, they have people that are doing the work, but they're all doing it on a voluntary basis. None of them are getting paid to do it. And while our donation, which is going to be somewhere around like, I would love to get that up to $1,500 by the end of the year. I'm going to match that. So we'll give them $3,000. That's barely going to pay somebody's rent, for a little while, much less pay somebody's salary or anything like that. But depending on how they use that money, it could make a big difference. It could buy a handful of laptops. It could buy, who knows. They do have some other partners and so on. And I haven't seen them actually post their 2021 tax return yet. But if they do, then I'll take a look at that. It's a little bit early for people yet to do their 2021 tax return for the 501(c). They're usually like at least 2 years behind posting. And then, ProPublica is a great organization to like get these things online where you can actually go in and you can take a look at like who they are, and look at all their tax filings and so on. They've only filed for that 1 year. So they have a president, they have an outreach coordinator, they have a VP, but all their compensation is zero. And what really stood out to me about this particular group was when I was examining other groups, they're like, oh, we took in like $1 million in fundraising and we paid like $800,000 worth of staff and employee salaries. It's like, so of that $1 million that you got in, you used $200,000 to actually make something better. Like, what did you do with that $200,000? Like, and so I started narrowing things down by how companies were spending that money. Not to say that, anybody with staff or paid employees is like inherently bad. I'm not saying that at all, because where I taught for 4 years, they were also a nonprofit. But you have to be responsible with how you're actually spending that money and what you're actually doing with that money. And this particular group, everybody's working for free right now. And so I want to like give them that money. I think that's going to be kind of our best choice. I had narrowed it down to a couple of others. One of them, I think, yanked their charitable organization status because I couldn't find anything new about them. And so my worry is that they got pulled as a charitable organization. And another one that I was looking at was the one I just mentioned, where they got like $800,000 worth of grant money, and almost all of it went to salaries. And then other contributions and whatever came in, but almost all of that money went to just paying the salaries of the people of the program and not actually benefiting the people going through the program. When we gave the money to Hack the Hood back in June, we gave them, by the time Postman chipped in, I think we gave them about $5,100. It was a little more than $5,000 that we had aimed for. They actually give that money to the students. They pay them a stipend to take their program. They pay them like $400 a month, and if they follow all the rules and they get all their projects done, not rules, but they do all the homework and stuff like that, and they do the projects, they get an extra $100. So they pay those students $500 a month to take their program. They don't pay to take the program. They get paid to do the program, and it's a college prep to get into computer science. And I'm like, cool, can all of that money go to pay students? Like, we just paid, as a community, we paid for 10 months worth of students to get paid to go through their program. And I'm like, that's what I want. That's what I want. I want to know that money is going to good use, right? That it's not going into someone else's pocket and like paying their bills. Like, I want it to go to the people that this is actually helping. And so I think the Girls Dream Code group, I think, is going to be a good recipient for that. So yeah. So that's who I've chosen for that giveaway. You're also welcome if you want to do your own tax deductible donation, whatever, directly to them. You're welcome to do that. I'll drop their information in chat. Let me go back here. I'll drop that in chat. If you want to make your own donation, you're absolutely welcome to. I think it'll really help them out. Yeah. So other folks are saying in chat, like find out if your company does things like charitable contribution matching. Like if you donate $100, will your company also donate $100? You know, Postman did. They matched up to, well, they say that they would match up to $1,500, but then they kicked in a little extra, which was a really pleasant surprise. Um, and so they typically tell us you get $1,500 a year to match whatever you're doing. So if you're giving a donation or you're matching hours, we'll match that with money as well. Um, so yeah, I think if you can talk to your employer about matching any kind of donation, that'd be great. If you want to donate here, I'll send it out. And again, I'm matching any donation that you're bringing in. So that's kind of the incentive here to like send me that donation money because I'm also going to match that money. But if you want to just do your own private donation, please feel welcome to. Doesn't the money doesn't have to come through me, but I'm happy to. And I've got full transparency. If you do exclamation point money in chat, you'll see a web page where I'm like detail and outline all of that stuff. I've got I don't think I've posted the screenshot, but I've actually got a screenshot from Hack the Hood where they're like, "Hey, we got all that money, thank you. I want to put that up on the site, just kind of just as extra proof that it's not going into my pocket at all. Like it like literally all this money went to them." So, best interview advice: swipe right on the founder on Tinder. Oh boy. Um, So Jen, no, I haven't talked to Girls Dream Code. I haven't actually told them like, hey, by the way, I've been raising this money and I'm just gonna surprise them with it like in early January because I want to raise money right up to the very end of the year, and then well, I'll probably do the donation like a couple of minutes before midnight, so it'll still count as like a 2021 donation. Um, but I'll probably do that like New Year's Eve and like send that in. Um, and then I'll send them a message afterwards and be like, "Hey, this is who I am, and this is what this donation was about, and we were happy to like raise this money as a community and so on." All right, what else did I miss? I think that was it. Women in tech, yeah, exactly. Cool, cool, cool. All right, well let's go back and let's get back into some resume reviews. We've got two more to go. I've been at this an hour and a half, so just so I'm not keeping everybody hanging. Let's go over to let's go do Jen's resume. So Jen, you're up next. Oh, you sent me a new one? Okay, let me go pull up the new one. Please use this one. Let's see, that was resume 3. All right, there we go. So this is the new one, and we see you kind of went through and changed up your font. That way your number isn't public. Yeah, that's true too. That's why I tell you on that form, like make sure it's anonymized because it's going to go on a stream. So, all right, cool. Let's prep this, and then we'll start a new clip. All right, so next up we got a resume from Jen, who's hanging out in chat right now. Jen is dabbling in developer advocacy like myself, and also learning in tech. And go give Jen a follow as well. This is Jen's name on Twitter and Twitch, so definitely go connect with Jen. Has a great podcast as well. As someone who thrives on human connection, Jen knows how. So I wouldn't generally talk about yourself in third person on a resume. I would just say, as someone who thrives on human connection, I know to advocate for those who have gone unheard. My passion. So I would remove the third person speech. Is a developer advocate, speaker, podcast host, and live streamer. Cool. I would probably make sure that you're like all of your contact info is up here at the top, like LinkedIn, GitHub if you have it, phone number, all that kind of stuff, email. Like make sure that that's all up here at the top. Gravity developer advocate consultant. It's okay to put all the dates on the left side. More common layout is to put it on the right, but if you want to leave it here on the left side, that's okay. We'll talk a little bit about the overlap and things like that. Gravity offers API development. I like that you're kind of telling us a little bit about what the company does. I think that's good. Grew brand awareness via events, blog posts, conferences, created and distributed product demo videos. If you can quantify like how many videos you made, how many views you got, things like that, because you're talking a little bit about quantifiable impact here on this third bullet point. But like, how much awareness did this grow? Like, were you able to measure that against other companies? And then like how many videos you made, how many views you got, things like that. See if you can quantify some of that on here as well. Increased unique visitors to Gravity community by 42%, page views by 100% by promoting Gravity at Denver Startup Week. Cool. This is exactly what I want to see on a resume. I can see what you did, and I can see the impact that that had, and that makes me want to say, Jen, come do that at my company too. So I think that's fantastic. Definitely keep that sort of stuff on your resume. The reason that that I was saying like dates are typically going to be like off on the right side is this kind of bleeds in together. Like you're a present Teach Gen Tech live stream. Oh, it's the date is something to present. So this is where it gets a little confusing. And generally, you want to put the newest stuff or your most present jobs kind of at the top. And so I would move Gravity down a little bit on here. That just worked. Wow. Okay. Sorry, just looking at something in chat real quick. So I would, yeah, I would probably move Gravity down a little bit just because you're presently doing these things. The other thing that I'm noticing is as I'm highlighting text on here, you see how the highlight is kind of jumping around? Like when I start highlighting the date, that's fine. When I drag that down into that next line, notice that all of this got highlighted. So what I want to show you is why that's a bad thing. Let me show the screen here. Let me pull up, let me go grab. Go grab this window for a sec. Wait, where is that window? Doesn't want to show that window. Why not? All right, let me see if I can fix my code editor here. It's not coming up here for some reason. Tech interview guide. Doesn't want to show on here. All right, let me see if I can just start a new code instance here. Let me see if I can get this pulled up in OBS. No, I don't want Chrome. I want my code editor. Why doesn't it want to show my code editor? Shows that window, but it won't show my VS Code window for some reason. Okay, so I'll come back to that another time. Jen, what I want you to do is open up that PDF file in a browser and just anywhere on the page, just click anywhere on the page and hit Control A, or if you're on a Mac, do Command A, and that'll highlight all of the text, and then do a copy paste into a text editor, like copy and paste that into VS Code, or copy and paste it into Notepad or some kind of text editor. And what you're going to find is it actually scrambles the order of how you've written things. Like when I scroll up to the very top, I see your name kind of with all the spaces in between. The word developer advocate actually has a bunch of spaces in the word. Curious is CUR space IOUS. And so it's like whatever is generating this PDF file is actually doing a really bad job of making that PDF file for you. So I think whatever tool you used, I think you need to switch and use a different tool or whatever you're designing it in. See if you can use like your system to like print that as a PDF file or something and see if that will fix the problem. But whatever you're using to lay it out right now, it's moving stuff all over the place. And I'll try to send you a message back a little bit later to show you like what I'm seeing, but it's really, really off. I wish I could show it in VS Code here, but for some reason OBS isn't pulling up my VS Code, and I don't know why. Nope, it just does not want to work. Weird. No. Now everything is going funky. So let's go back to here, go back to here. Nope. Oh, it pulled up the whole screen. All right, there we go. Kind of back to normal. So yeah, anyway. Brian says I used MS Word. I use Google Drive. I just use Google Docs, honestly, and just tell it to print as a PDF or save as a PDF from there. Used Canva. Okay. So Canva is usually a good tool, but in this case, if you kind of do that like copy paste thing, like highlight all the text and copy paste, you'll see what I'm talking about. And the downside to that is automatic, what we call applicant tracking systems, or ATS. They're basically just scraping all of the text out of this and then doing keyword matching. And so if you're trying to keyword match on the words developer advocate, guess what? This developer advocate up here at the top doesn't actually scan as developer advocate. It's DE space V space E space LOPE space R. And so if someone's searching through their database looking for the words developer advocate, you're not going to hit. Now later where you say Jen is a developer advocate, these words actually stayed together, but other keywords on here may not, depending on how these things actually got built and got, put into the PDF file. So just an awareness thing that this could be like not processed well and not scan well for people that are using applicant tracking systems, which are the majority of companies right now. So something to be aware about there. So anyway, back to what I was saying. We were talking about moving gravity down a little bit, since this work, like your live stream and your API meetup stuff, is more present. Like this is stuff that you kind of actively work on, where gravity, although at the same time, gravity was like a paid role, I think, right, for a little while. And, those impact statements do stand out. I'm a little torn on this. Typically, I would tell somebody, like, always make sure it's chronological, but I think this one has the most impact and might get lost if you put this other stuff later. So I'm going to tell you to leave it in this order. I think it'll be fine. Dev advocate, co-organizer of API meetup, podcast host. Yep. And then Stoplight. Stoplight's a collaborative API design platform, competitor to Postman, but we won't talk about that on the stream. Learning services manager, sales enablement manager. So it's good that you had multiple roles. One thing that you could do on here is put the date range that you worked at Stoplight over on the right side, but then also list the dates that you had each of these roles. So if you got promoted from one to the other, or you did a lateral move from one to the other, because we can see from here that you were at Stoplight for a year, but were you a sales enablement manager for most of that time, and you were learning services manager for like the last month that you were there, or was it a 6-month split on each? Like it might be nice to see how long you were in each of those roles. And again, what kind of impact did you have at those roles? You're showing a lot of impact stuff up here, like growing your developer audience over 90 days, 1,000% growth rate. Like you're showing a lot of good quantifiable information. But down here on this job, you're not really telling me any. I also like to say, like, bullet points shouldn't wrap to another line. Try to keep it, about no more than 3/4 of the width of the page, or whatever container in, if you're doing multiple columns. I think you could reduce some of the text on there. And then other experience, Pro One Media, full service production company, cool digital production and project manager. Okay. And then GoDaddy. Oh, sweet. Worked at GoDaddy. Yeah, I would definitely keep GoDaddy on there. Training certifications, this is all fine. Presently focusing on learning. I would take this off. honestly, and just say like these are things I know. You know about APIs, you know about JavaScript, you know about TypeScript. They will determine during their interview process how much of those that you know. But saying that I'm presently focused on learning, like I'm learning how to, what am I learning these days? I'm learning how to organize my time better. You have to be a little bit careful about talking about things that you're learning on the resume, because if it's like I'm interested in learning artificial intelligence, well, now AI is going to hit if someone searches their database for go find me a Python developer who knows AI. I'm going to show up because I said I wanted to learn AI, or that I'm currently learning AI. I actually had this process or this problem on my LinkedIn over the past several months. I kept getting all these roles for full stack development in React. I'm like, I don't know React. And they're like, we're looking for people with 5 years of React experience. I'm like, I took like a 1 month course where I was learning React. But because I had that on my LinkedIn profile, people are just searching, full stack plus React. And I was showing up as a hit. And because I've got so much experience, they're like, you look like a great fit. It's like, if you actually had read my profile, you would see I know like this much React. I know how to spell React. That's about the limit of my knowledge. Because recruiters don't actually read the whole thing. They're just hitting on these keywords and then they reach out. And so you have to be careful like how you're presenting that information. So just say that you know it. Just say you know the thing. Learning services as a department was never launched, even within all the content. Okay. How do I show that on your LinkedIn and your resume? I mean, you could put it, well, I mean, you've currently got it under training and certification. Presently focusing on learning. I would just say currently learning. I think presently focusing on learning. If you want to leave it on there, I would just say currently learning. And then I would probably put like topics brought up on Teach Gen Tech or something, like put that in parentheses or something like that. And then what I would probably do up here is when you're talking about Teach Gen Tech, you're kind of talking about like tech experts come in and they're teaching me about different things and programming and so on. You're kind of explaining that up here already. The other thing that you could do would be to take these topics that you're listing down here and actually move them up into Teach Gen Tech and talk about them up here and talk about some of the things that you've actually learned. Like I've been learning Python and APIs and JavaScript, TypeScript, and just put that in that block. So it'll still hit on those keywords, but then when they get down here to the skills block, they'll be like, oh, we don't actually see those programming languages, but they do hit on the page somewhere else. So I would probably move that under the Teach Gen Tech work that you have on there. Customer experience in the advisory panel. Yep. All of these things are really good to have. All these training certifications are good. From a skills point of view, I generally tell people like don't switch from the layout that you had to a different kind of layout, because you went from like a single column format to a 3-column format just to list out your skills. I would probably see like, is there a way that you could group these up and just put them on like like you're already taking up 3 lines of vertical space. So just say like, what kind of like teamwork, have I done, or business focus work, and so on, and like maybe group them up that way, or like community work, and see if you can like just make like a comma delimited list for some of those. For content creation, you've kind of talked about it elsewhere on the page, but like between blogging and videos and live streaming and things like that, you may want to call out some of those again, as far as like actually calling out specific skills. The last thing that I'll mention is your bullet points are inconsistent. Here, it's a solid bullet point, a lot closer to the left margin, but when we get down into here, it's suddenly a hollow bullet point and it's indented quite a lot more. So you can see the difference between what we've got here and what you've got here. And then back down here at the bottom, it changes back to the solid bullet point closer to that margin again, but then your skills block is like even farther to the left than before. So again, that's also why I'd recommend like not making these bullets down here at the bottom, because it's breaking that layout quite a bit. But make sure that all of your bullet points on the page follow the same format. So if you want the solid bullet close to that left margin, then do the same on all of these as well, all the way up. Otherwise, you're shifting things, but where this is all like the same block, and so it should all be formatted the same way. Cool. Well, that was Jen's resume. Hopefully that'll give you some ideas, and I'm always happy to re-review a resume. We had one person on the stream, I think, sent us in like 3 or 4 resumes to review over time. So happy to look through more and more resumes. The next one we have is from someone named Kevin, and all right, so let's go in and we'll get ready for this one. Oops. All right, so the last resume that we have for tonight is from Kevin, and they sent in a note. I love tech. I've been trying to make my way into a job in tech. I've been passively learning how to code since I was a kid. I just never had the confidence to apply for work as a junior dev. So I'm hoping to get my resume and website looked at for some advice on how to improve and make myself more sellable, and then gave me the link to the website. So we'll absolutely pull that up. Let's have a look. So you get your phone number, you get your email address. If you have a GitHub account or a LinkedIn profile, I always recommend like get that up here in that contact info as well. Just pull up your website so that loads while we're going here. This summary is enormous. I would shrink that by at least 2/3. Because yeah, you've got a lot of content on here, and we'll definitely talk about some of that. You do have a North American phone number, so if you're building out a North American resume, we can see by zooming way out, the formatting is going to need some work here. But this is also where I tell people like, hey, go build a really big resume and then trim out the stuff that companies aren't going to care about when they actually go through to read your resume. So what you need to decide is you're learning how to code. You want to apply for jobs as a junior dev. So your resume needs to very clearly show me that you are a web developer. So I would start by putting web developer as a title or something under your name. Don't call yourself a junior. Don't level yourself. Let the company do that. But you can still say that you're a web developer and like put that in as a title for yourself up at the top of the resume. The summary here is really meant to give a little bit of context around a little bit of like, tell me about yourself kind of thing, where you want to share a little bit about your background and a little bit about like how you've gained the skills that you have and so on. But this summary is enormous, and no one's going to read all of this. The focus of my research is currently in analyzing the relationship between media and public understanding of reality. My research incorporates an interdisciplinary methodology that includes rhetoric, mass media effects theory, focus groups, and relational interviews, diverse theoretical approaches. So none of this has anything to do with web development. I've taught for 5 years at K-12, leading courses in public speaking, argumentation, creative writing. Okay. I'm currently teaching my second undergraduate speech and debate team as a graduate teaching assistant. Okay. I also work as a communications specialist for University of Pacific Alumni Association, Seeds of Growth, California Workforce. Okay. As a communications specialist, I manage social media company, etc. I use data analytics. Okay. Now we're finally getting to where you might actually do some programming. I use data analytics to make informed decisions, create communication best practices, plural maybe, analyzing competitors, synthesizing business intelligence, and evaluating trends to enhance business results. So you're a data analyst. Okay. Forward thinking and enterprising when meeting expected demands with real-time data and strategic recommendations, natural leader with resourceful and systematic approach. Okay. And then from a skills point of view. So none of these skills tell me anything about wanting to be a developer. So those would be some of the first things that you need to kind of reorganize on here. If you want to look like a web developer, then this introduction needs to scream at me. I'm a web developer. Here are the skills that I have as a web developer. These are the projects that I've built as a web developer. You need to show that if you're going to be a web developer. The first part of this, you're talking like a research project, and then you talk about a lot about like communication and helping people with communication, and then you're getting into data analysis. So I kind of see this as like a 3-part resume, but for a North American job, they're like most tech companies aren't going to be concerned about a lot of this stuff. So again, making a really big resume is kind of the goal that we want. And then you want to trim it back down to 1 page when you actually go to apply for a given job. So try to figure out, what does that company want to see? If I'm applying for like a JavaScript React developer job, then my resume needs to show very clearly, I know JavaScript, I know React, these are the projects that I've done, this is what I've learned, this is how I'm using those skills. I haven't seen anything about programming on page 1 other than I use data analytics. Maybe that's programming. There's nothing at all on page 1 yet that I've looked at so far. Identify, analyze social media strategy, prepare forecasts, develop automation. Okay. Analyze market data. So like there might be some programming in here, but like you don't really talk about like programming or what language you use, anything like that. Work independently as a team to create communication content for social media and the company website. Okay. Maintain effective, beneficial relationships with internal, external customers. Okay. Now we're getting into web development. Very bottom of page 1. Followed internal procedures for HTML script standards to create reliable, reusable assets. Okay. Reviewed information elements. Improved design. Troubleshot, tested, remedied issues before page deployment. Okay. And then was this supposed to be part of... It looks like accessibility requirements got cut off from somewhere else. It looks like the tail end of something else. So I think, yeah, again, I think some of this needs to get sort of reorganized a little bit, because from a timeline point of view, you've got a current job, again, as a communications specialist, but where does this accessibility belong? Like, where did this come from? Was this part of this job? If so, it needs to get reformatted in here. The other thing I would probably do is reformat this a little bit to where this stuff is part of, what we've got here, and like get rid of this really big indentation over here on the left. I think it's using up a lot of sort of space on the page that doesn't need to be used up. Like leaving this empty, like this could be used for much better purposes, like not letting your bullet points wrap onto multiple lines. And so I would move a lot of this stuff up, above here, and then shift all of this stuff back to where these bullet points are kind of like on the left edge here, on that left margin, similar to the skills over here. But yeah, if you're looking for a web development job, your skills up here should be telling me like programming languages and libraries that you've used, and what kinds of data analysis you've done, things like that will really highlight like this is what I claim to know as a developer. So then we're getting back into a communications specialist, which you talked a lot about in the summary at the top. Oh, thank you, Ryan, for the hydrate. And G1EEP, thanks for the follow. Appreciate that. So yeah, we talked about this, and I would say it's good to have this on the long form resume that I talked about, where you have like all of this information. But when you go to apply for a job, you're going to remove bullet points that company doesn't want to see. Ideally, you want to get this down to 1 page, maybe 2 pages if you've been like working a lot, similar to like what Jen had. Jen had a lot of varied experience. So having a 2-page resume for Jen actually made sense, because it shows a lot of the different aspects of what Jen has been doing and how that's applicable as a developer advocate. For what you're doing here, you're highlighting a lot of stuff around like communication and so on, which is not really going to be part of your job as a web developer. And so having the bullet points on here is fine, because you can always remove them later. So definitely keep all of this on your really long resume. But when you actually want to apply for a job as a developer, you're going to trim out all kinds of stuff here and bring that back down to 1 page. That makes it look like you're a web developer, and these are the skills that you have as a web developer, as a programmer. Graduate copy editor and editing. Yeah, like a lot of what you're writing here is like, I did this thing and I gave instruction to 20 students at a time. Like you're giving good information here, but it's not until we get all the way down here, again, we see web development. So a lot of this stuff isn't going to matter to anybody that's wanting to hire you as a web developer. They want to see this job. They want to know what you did at the Seeds of Growth as a consultant. Helped achieve a consistent look by promoting uniform fonts, formatting, and so on. Okay, so this is more like front-end design, managed front-end, back-end development, using PHP and MySQL. Okay, cool. We finally got into some technologies that you know. And then we're getting into education and training, activities and honors, accomplishments, additional information, and then like websites and so on. So the only thing on this entire resume that tells me that you even know programming is this right here, that you did some PHP and you did some MySQL. That's the only place that you're actually calling out the technologies that you claim to know. So that would definitely need to change. If you're going to build a resume as a programmer, this summary needs to talk about like, this is how I got into programming. This is how I use programming on the job. Your skills block should highlight, these are the languages that I know. These are the tools that I use, like Git, MySQL, whatever libraries, like if you've done like some Laravel or Cake PHP, like any sort of frameworks that you've used. If you've done like PHP unit for unit testing, like any sort of libraries and technologies and things like that. If you've done caching and, Redis, put Redis on there, like whatever technologies that you've used as part of that development. If you've deployed that code anywhere, what hosting providers have you used? How did you do that deployment? Did you do it using like Travis CI or Jenkins or GitHub Actions? Like, I want to see all of that in that skills block. And then because you've kind of said in the email when you sent in the resume, you've been passively learning how to code since I was a kid. If you didn't learn it professionally, if you didn't learn it at any of these jobs here, so this is all communication studies, Associate of Science in Computer Science. Okay, so you have an associate's degree in computer science, and you have a data analytics certificate. Okay, cool. This is what you want to highlight. Like I would put these specifically up on page 1. I would leave the rest of this down here at the bottom, because again, these aren't as important as showing me that you have actually done some computer science. You've actually done some data analytics. I would get that stuff up on page 1. Also, generally, you want to try to put these things in chronological order as well. But yeah, this first page should talk about the skills that you have, and then any side projects that you've done where you've actually exercised using these skills. You can put your own website on here as well. So we've got your website. I'm a front-end developer. Okay. So let's see what we got in here. I have a background in communication studies, education, computer science. You got your phone number and so on here. You got your skills. Okay, now we see a skills block. Why isn't any of this on the resume? You've done WordPress, you've done Python. I would get rid of progress bars though. Progress bars are very subjective, and they are not very helpful for people looking at the resume, because I'm going to look at this and go, oh, you claim to know 75% of all CSS. How do you know that that's 75%? Was that a quiz score that you got? Or have you read 75% of a book on CSS? Like, what does 75% mean? Nobody knows. And whatever it means to you, I guarantee it doesn't mean that to anybody else. So I would actually take these progress bars off and just say, these are the skills that I have, and these are the projects where I've used these skills, but I would get rid of these progress bars. I don't think those progress bars help. Then you got your resume on here. You're also outlining stuff on here again. And then your portfolio. Okay, so now we can get into the actual projects and things that you've made. You made a Chrome extension. You got a website that you made for a client, sentiment reader. So these are the kinds of things, and it looks like this is on GitHub. So list these things on your resume. So I have a resume sample that hopefully the voice activation bot is going to put in the chat up here. If I say resume sample, it's not going to work for me. All right. Let me do, I don't have a button for it. Resume sample. So here's a Google Drive, Google Doc that we can take a look at. And this is where you can kind of borrow some elements from here. So let me pull that into here and show you what I mean. And you're welcome to copy and borrow any of this stuff. But this is how I like to see a skills block. Like, show me the languages, libraries, databases, tools, things like that. And like try to fill this up as much as you can with whatever technologies that you've used. If it's only a couple of lines long, that's okay too. When you talk about your projects, this is how I like to lay out my projects. Tell me the name of the project. Was it a solo project, a group project? Experience the app. Give me a link to the actual thing if you can. At a minimum, give me the GitHub link for it. I had one team say like, "Hey, we made a tutorial on we made a video on how we made this particular project. Can we put that YouTube link on here?" I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." Just say like, "This is how I made the thing." Give me a user empathy statement. Tell me like, what does the user even do with that project? Like if we come back here and we look at cut cards, it's a Chrome extension. And if I go click into that, one of the things that you have to explain on here is like, what is this thing for? It's a tool created by Cut Cards. Cut is created to help debaters gather evidence faster in and outside of round. Okay, so there's your user empathy statement that you would put on your resume. Is you would say users can update, debate cards in and out of session or something like that. And then give me some bullet points on like, what did you learn about building out that project? And then give me the tech stack that you used for that project. Get those projects on page 1 of your resume. If you want to apply for a job as a developer, like you need to build a developer resume. And so feel free to grab any of these elements in here. This is how I like to talk about education, professional experience. If you've got other experience that's not tech experience, again, you want to kind of minimize what you talk about at those jobs. You don't have to give me bullet point after bullet point after bullet point, but anything where you've had a really strong impact on the job, you definitely want to talk about. And then if you actually have technical experience, I kind of lay that stuff out as well. So feel free to grab any elements off of that resume sample if you like. You're welcome to borrow and steal as much of that as you like. Hey Bricks, the queue is not long at all. This was actually our last resume for the night. If you want to send one in, you're welcome to email it like right now, and I'll get to it right now. So what I would say on that, Ozzy, is like overall, you've got you've got a lot of content on here, and it's good content. Like you've got a lot of really rich background, but to apply for a developer job, very little of this is actually going to matter. But if you find a company where communication is their product, then they're going to care a lot about your communications background. And so again, you're going to keep things on the resume that are relevant to whatever company that you're applying to. But if they're not a communication company, then you don't have to talk about most of the stuff that you've got on the resume right now. I think you're going to have to scrutinize a little bit on like, which bullet points do I keep? I think because of the background that you have and the involvement that you've had, you could probably go with a 2-page resume, but page 1 has to be entirely web development. This is all the web development stuff. These are my projects. Coming back over here to like your portfolio site and like looking at the things that you've built over here. And how you built these things out on GitHub and so on. Like, let's go look at your GitHub profile. So you got some projects on here, but your GitHub profile is like really, really empty. So people are going to look at this and go, "You're a developer? Like you don't have very much on GitHub." That's not necessarily a deal breaker. And it's okay to say that you're a self-taught programmer. That's totally okay. But whatever these projects are, you're probably going to want to put more activity on GitHub. Just because this is somewhere that people are going to go to find out about you and what kind of programmer you are. Like I may look at this and go, okay, well let's go see how you built this sentiment reader in JavaScript. Like let's actually go look at the code. People are actually going to like dive in. They're going to look at commit history, especially for self-taught, because they want to know what kind of habits you've formed as a self-taught programmer. If you've gone through a school and you've studied computer science, then they're going to put some trust in that education facility. When you're self-taught, the only like you are the source of where you learn that material. Following some sort of like curated curriculum is generally going to be more helpful, where they can see a structure of like, this is what you've learned and this is how you've learned it, this is how you've applied it. When you're self-taught, they're going to be a little bit worried that you've picked up bad practices. Maybe you just you're using Stack Overflow. You're kind of what we joke, you're a full Stack Overflow developer, where you're kind of like copying and pasting code and making things work, but are you really following like industry best practices? But I want to be clear, being self-taught is totally okay. Can you get a job being self-taught? Absolutely. You can absolutely get a job as a 100% self-taught programmer. But you're going to have to really show on this resume, this is what I know, this is the impact that I've had, this is how I've done these things. That's how you're going to stand out and get noticed and start getting phone calls. And then lots and lots of networking, as much networking as you possibly can. That's what's going to really help you stand out for sure. Um, Thanks, RC, for answering in chat. So yeah, you can anonymize as much as you like. If you don't want to anonymize it and you're okay with the details being out on Twitch and YouTube, that's fine. I totally get that. So it's totally up to you. And Oz, if you want to like rework that resume and send it back over to me, I'm happy to chat with you some more about that. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn as well, and we can chat over LinkedIn. You can send me an updated copy, and I can give you some more ideas. So Bricks, if you want, oh, you sent it as is, okay. Um, so Brick says, I'm in my first year of college and trying to look for a job. I'd like to get feedback if I'm putting info in a good way. Okay, cool. Let's pull this one up. This will be May 5. All right, well, let's go take a look at Bricks. All right, one more resume for the night. This is from Bricks, who's currently in chat. Sent this over. Again, I would probably get rid of the third person like narration. Like, don't talk about yourself in third person on the resume. Just say, this is me. This is who I am. Again, you're not in North America, and so some of your CV layout is going to be a little bit different from what we might do in North America, but that's okay. You've got a lot of the good stuff on here so far. I would just say like computer science student on here, and get rid of all of this stuff. They don't need to know that you've been looking for opportunities. I mean, clearly you're looking for an opportunity if you're applying for a job. So I think all you need to say here for this part that I've highlighted over here on the left is just computer science student, or computer science intern or something like that, or software development intern, something along those lines. And then you've got all your contact info over here, which is fine. You're listing your education first, computer science, which is fine. Skills and languages. Yep. I would probably define this as spoken language, and then programming languages, and then other technologies. You got some good stuff on here. Cool. And then professional experience as a backend developer. So job at Dev. Currently working on IMT's biggest event website, Smile Week. Okay. So, Bricks, let me ask, is this actually a paid position, or is this just a project that you're working on the side? If it's paid, then so it looks like Dev Community College Group. I think that's all meant to be together there. But yeah, it is a little ambiguous here, like job at Dev Community College Group. So Bricks, if you can give us a little bit of context in chat while we kind of go through this, that would be a big help. It's not paid. If it's not paid, it's not really professional experience. If it's volunteer, you could say it's volunteer experience. Or if it's a project that you're actually doing, then I would list it as project work. But listing it as professional experience is thought of and treated a little bit differently because people are going to think that you're getting paid to do this. Now, everything that you're mentioning in here is absolutely great, but I think listing it as professional experience, I think, is a bit misleading. And so I think you need to be careful about that. We talked about that on a resume review earlier today. And then you got project work, website containing World Cup news, prototype on Figma, program CSS, JavaScript. Not sure what the letter E is in here for. Is that supposed to be like an ampersand or something? With Bootstrap. Bootstrap is a capital B and an API for data requests. usage of MongoDB. Mongo has a capital M. So again, just go through and like make sure that things are capitalized and spelled correctly. And then Data Academy, SQL, Quiz Game. It's Portuguese as an ampersand. Okay, I got you. Oh, I got you. Well, if most of your resume is going to be in English, then you want to actually use the ampersand signal or symbol. Like you actually want to try to use this symbol if you can, or actually write out the word and. Um, you don't want to mix languages on here because otherwise people reading it are going to get confused. Certificates and awards, AWS practitioner, cool. Yep, all these look fine. And then you've got an empty page which you can kind of trim out. So okay, so a couple of things that I would do on here. So let's zoom out and kind of take a look at the layout. Overall, the layout's really clean. You've got stuff pushed against the right margin, you got stuff against the left margin. Overall, the use of the space is pretty good. One thing that stands out to me is you've got kind of this gap in between these columns down here at the bottom and this last one here kind of wrapped onto another line. If you're already using up this many lines of text, I'm wondering, is there a way that you could just list them all vertically or something? Trying to think of how that would work. One thing I would do on here, though, is I would actually just make sure that all of the text on the entire page is kind of a uniform font and a uniform size. So the same font and same size. So the first thing I would do is come in here, highlight everything, make it all 10-point font, and then come back, make your name a little bit bigger, make it like 18 to 20-point font, make these headings like 20 or like 12 or 14-point font, but leave everything else 10-point font. That's going to kind of make everything more normalized, I guess, on the page as far as like how it looks. Also, if you can fix the right margin here, the right margin is a little bit off. What you have up here is slightly indented off that right margin compared to this date here. It feels very nitpicky, but it does kind of stand out for someone, where attention to detail is going to be really important. Backend developer, you got your project work, certificates and awards. I think the order that you're listing things here is fine. Again, I would say that, if this wasn't paid work, if it was volunteer, like you could maybe call it volunteer experience. But I wouldn't call it professional experience because professional experience implies that you're getting paid. RC Maniac says in chat, misspellings, grammar issues, etc. will get dumped very quickly. Yeah, I agree. So yeah, you want to be really careful to go through and like make sure everything is capitalized properly and spelled correctly and so on. But overall, like how you're talking about your projects is generally pretty good. This project is still ongoing. That's fine. Capitalization on your date here. I would take the period off the end of the name of the month, like MAR dot. Here you've got the name of the month and then a space. But here you go right from the dot right to the year. So again, just looking for uniformity on that it's all kind of done the same way, I think will be really important to just to sort of reformat that a little bit. And then all of this stuff, just make all this stuff the same font size. I think it's okay that this is actually, wraps around. You're a 2-time gold medalist at International Math Olympiad. I think that's fine. Now, some companies are going to look at that and go, oh, cool. We got like a math, someone who's really, really good at math. I think it's okay to have on there. Some companies may not care as much, but I think it's fine to put on there. And then I would say first place. It's not past tense. You got first place on that one. But otherwise, I think that this is okay. Python Essentials 2, although you don't mention a Python Essentials 1. But again, I don't think too many people are going to complain about that. Yeah, overall, I think the layout is generally pretty good. Database is going to be all one word, all lowercase. MySQL has a capital M. So again, just making sure that you're consistent with those things, I think would be important. But overall, like I said, you're talking about your projects really well. You're talking about the professional experience here. So one piece of advice that I've given on the stream a bunch of times already is seeing that you've done a thing is good. Seeing the impact that had is better. So I did this thing and it made something 10% faster, or I improved my MySQL queries and lowered the CPU usage on my database by 50%. Like if you can show impact with any of this stuff, that's going to stand out even more. And part of why I mentioned that is when we as hiring managers read your resume, we want to read this going, oh, I want this person to come do that at my company. Like, look at the thing that you did. I want you to come do that here. Just seeing that you've done the thing is fine. But if you can show the impact that you had while doing that thing, it's even better. So as much as possible, if you can. Not everybody can. Not everybody did benchmarking before and after and things like that. But if you've ever gone in and improved code, and you can, even if you can roll back to that old code for a minute and just do some benchmarking and then roll it forward and do more benchmarking and see how it changed. Now you can talk about the impact that you had. Like, I worked on this project and over the course of a year, we improved the code and removed code and we made it 20% faster. Like, that's a strong impact statement that you can go back and you can refactor code to improve something, that you can optimize things. So talking about the impact that you had in a role or on a project really stands out to companies as far as like what they are looking for, because they are looking for people to come do that where they are as well. So given that you're still in school and you're trying to find like an internship or something like that, I would say what's going to stand out most to those companies is the project work that you've done, and being able to see that you've worked on several different kinds of projects, which you clearly have on here. You've done some full stack development, kind of overall, between what you did in Java with Data Academy, what you did on the front end with your Copa stats. It looks like you're doing a little bit of like more back end and maybe the deployment side on doing the back end development job with this project. So you're kind of covering a lot of bases here. So all of that like looks really good. As a developer, you've clearly got the skills, like you're working towards that. And I think that overall that amount of experience is going to look good, especially since you're using a lot of things that most people in computer science programs don't get into. Most computer science degrees don't get into like Docker and AWS and things like that. Like, they're going to be learning more about compilers and things like that. So you're using a lot of technologies that a lot of other computer science programs don't teach. And that's going to stand out. So really highlighting those things, especially when a company is looking for that kind of stuff. I think it'll be really important to highlight that as much as possible on the resume and when you're applying for the job. All right, I'm gonna hydrate for a moment. RC, appreciate you sharing your thoughts in chat as well. Hey, Beardage. Do you think the need for a resume diminishes over time? I got my last job without ever sending one because all my info was fleshed out on LinkedIn, but was hired as a senior, so maybe that has more to do with it. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, at some point, your experience is sort of going to speak for itself. Like, they're going to look over your LinkedIn and go, look at everywhere this person has worked. Like, clearly they know some things. When I left SendGrid, the next job that I got, I asked them, like, do you want me to come in and do a technical interview? And they're like, well, you were at SendGrid for 4 years. If you were incompetent, they would have fired you. And I'm like, okay. And so they didn't do any technical interview. And I went in and I did the job just fine. Some companies are like that. A lot of companies, though, they want to see some amount of demonstration and things like that. Is there ever going to be a point where you don't need a resume? I don't know. I mean, technically, your LinkedIn is your resume at this point, because they looked at that and they used that as, okay, here's everything this person knows. Let's, and they got you through the interview process and you got the job. So that became your resume, which I think is fine. You don't have to maintain like all of the above. For me, my resume is highly tailored to a specific job, where my LinkedIn is just every dang thing I've ever done in my career. And so anybody going to look at my career, they're like, what is this guy? Like, is he a manager? Is he a programmer? Is he DevRel? Like, what is this guy? He does a little of everything. It's like, yeah, I'm a Swiss Army knife engineer. Like, I'll do whatever you need me to do. But when I go apply for a job, I make a highly tailored resume for that specific job. So that's how I kind of treat both of those. I treat my LinkedIn like my dumping ground. Like, I'm just going to put all the things on LinkedIn, but my resume is highly targeted. I don't know that we'll ever get to a point where we don't ever have resumes. Like, we don't have resumes at all. I don't know if we'll get to that. It would be interesting to think about. I know a lot of people think like, oh, my GitHub should be my resume. And there were actually, there was a project that I remember seeing years ago where they actually went through and scanned your GitHub account and looked through all the projects and code commits and things like that. And they actually built you a resume based on the languages that you worked in the most. And so they could go through and they could kind of scan things and say, Ian works this much in Python, this much in JavaScript, and and so on and so on. What would be interesting with that is to say Ian's been working on this Python project for so many years, therefore Ian has this many years of experience in Python. That would be interesting to see as a statistic. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I think some combination of like LinkedIn and GitHub, can kind of speak for itself, but people are also going to trust the companies that you go to and work at and the things that you've done to some degree. And sometimes there's an over trust. Like when we were at SendGrid, we hired somebody from a FANG company and we're like, this person's going to come save the day. They're going to know everything about scale and they're going to know everything about engineering and they're going to have all this really deep architecture knowledge. And they got in and they're like, I don't have any of that. Like we hired them and like within a couple of months, they're like, I quit. Like they're what they were used to doing at Facebook was showing up and being told, go work on this ticket, and they would go build the thing and it would be done and they would move on to the next ticket. But when we hired them, our hope was like, you're going to come in with ideas on how to make our systems better, and they're like, that's not what I do. But our interview process was like, tell us about this project and tell us about this that you did and tell us about that you did. But we never interviewed them for how would you build this sort of thing. Like we didn't really have the equivalent of like a system design interview back then. And so I think we would have caught in a hurry that they don't know system design because that wasn't a thing, over a decade ago. We didn't really interview for that kind of stuff. But that's what we wanted them to be when we hired them. So our interview process quickly changed from there. So it might get to a point where we don't have resumes. But I think it's important that we trust, like there has to be trust of what you claim to know and some demonstration of that skill, where the resume can give a little more context and a little more background on it than maybe just an interview. So I don't know. It's an interesting thing to think about for sure. Just reading through chat here, see if I missed anything else. So Bearded says, I do the same. I keep a complete resume and then I make specific ones for jobs that I target. I was surprised I didn't need it for the last one. Yeah, every company's a little different. It's nice. It's kind of refreshing when you find a company that does things a little bit differently, um, especially in a positive way. It's always bad when they do things differently in a bad way, where it's like drastically like, oh, we want you to do like 20 interviews and write like a ton of code and stuff. Anyway, um, Eggy Smalls, good to see you in chat. Any thoughts about the recent layoffs may flood the market with good talent? Um, Maybe. Depends how good the talent is. Because usually companies, aside from Elon Musk, generally don't let go their best employees. Um, they typically look for like the bottom performers. Like there was a leaked memo about Facebook, and they're like basically everybody at Facebook that had been given a review of like needs support were the ones that lost their job. So there is going to be some question of like, are they actually good engineers? Because now it's out that everybody at Meta that lost their job were like not performing well. So anybody now looking at them, it's kind of like what do we call, like tainting the jury a little bit, right? Where, oh, you got laid off from Meta. I read in the news that Meta only let people go that weren't good. So is it flooded with good talent? Or is it flooded with talent? At the same time, they were able to get a job at Meta where other people couldn't. So clearly there's some level of skill that other companies didn't have. So yeah, I think, and I talked about this really early on in the stream tonight, where yes, there's definitely a flood of talent, but those people are going to go find jobs. At the same time, for anybody that's looking for a job, like now's the time to like get ahead of all of them because they just lost their job. They're probably going to need a couple of days to kind of like react and like settle into the reality of like I'm unemployed. Let me go like brush up the resume. Let me go start networking. Let me start grinding on leak code again. Like it could take some of them a month or more to actually start applying for jobs. So I think you've got a bit of a head start. If you're looking for a job now, like really put in the hustle now and get in front of all of them because it's going to take them a minute to actually go apply for those jobs. Beard just brings up a good point too. The market's definitely flooded with engineers looking for the top 5% salaries. And I said this on the stream earlier too. I think we're going to see salaries come down a little bit because of the supply and demand. Like there's a lot more developers, therefore I think the salaries are going to come down a little bit. Um, and it'll be interesting to see how that pressures everything else because those developers want to make the same amount of money, but the companies are going to say, well, there's a lot more of you on the market, so we're going to offer a little bit less, but developers still want to make that amount of money, so are they going to try to negotiate back up to that? And are companies going to be willing to negotiate back up to those salaries? It'll be interesting to see how that plays out, but I think that we're going to see a bit of a dip over the next like 6 to 8 months until we see the employment kind of tick back up again. A lot of the FANG companies said they're going to resume hiring in the new year through Q1 and Q2. Apple said that they're going to wait until late 2023 to start hiring again. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the pressures and everything going on and how that kind of plays out. I did a really long stream about it last week and how I've been through two other economic issues in the tech industry, like the 2001 dot-com bust and then the 2008-2009 recession, and now this one. So I've been around. I've seen a few of these. This one feels very different though, and I've got like a whole stream on that. If you want to go like recap that, you're welcome to go watch that VOD. But RC says friend said that according to Blind, while Meta layoff was 13% of the company, the engineering org was 5%. Yeah, most of it was like recruiting and like organization and stuff like that they just didn't need. But apparently they got rid of the whole like Meta Quest team, like the VR team, like the AR VR team. So I don't know what's going to happen with that because they were sinking a lot of money into virtual reality and stuff. Yeah. I saw somebody on, I think, where is it? I can't keep track now if it was on Mastodon or on Twitter, but someone was like, yeah, they laid off the whole like MetaQuest team. Because they were on the team and they're like, we poured everything into this. The company poured billions of dollars into this and they like cut the whole thing off. Yeah, they literally called Meta because of the VR stuff. Yeah, I'll have to see if I can find the thing now, but yeah, they let a whole team go apparently. So yeah, good times. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Like I said, I think we're gonna see salaries come down a little bit. And so I think being prepared for that is going to be important. But being able to stand out to a company by knowing what a company is looking for and what they're going to care about, I think is going to make the biggest impact for people trying to find jobs. Scholarship Trace, thanks for the follow, appreciate that. Um, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. I think it's going to be a rocky couple of months for sure. So we'll see how it plays out over the holidays. There's usually like a lot of myth that this time of year is really really bad for hiring. That's not always the case. There are still companies that are hiring. You just have to know like where are they posting their jobs, what kind of people are they looking for, what's going to stand out to them as a company, and then make sure that your resume and projects and things like that are tailored to what they want to see. It's the people that are making the generic resumes that are going to have a harder time, I think, getting noticed, especially when there's a flood of developers on the market suddenly looking for jobs, because your resume is not going to stand out. Or if you're making generic projects that aren't as meaningful to a company, they're not going to look at that resume and go, "Oh, dang, we need to like hire this person. We need to call them. We need to like interview them." If you can't stand out to the companies based on what you've been building, then you're going to have a harder time networking and finding those jobs. And networking is absolutely going to find you a job faster than just, blasting a resume out to a bunch of places. It is a numbers game, but the more you can network and the more you can get people to do referrals for you, the faster you're going to find a job, I think. RC says, according to my friends at Google, they are hiring. It's technically just starting the process and keeping them in the system, but not finishing it. Another friend passed a phone screen, but it's been 3 or 4 months without going further. Yeah, one thing that I've heard about, was it Google? That they'll interview you, they'll get you in the system, but then they're going to tell you like, by the way, we're not hiring until February. So if you can hang on until February, we'll like call you back then. But they're at least getting the process started because once you start interviewing with them, they're good for 6 months, and after 6 months, they start to drop off. Is it 6 months or a year? I think it was a year actually. That if you interview with them, your scores stay in their system for up to a year. So if you ever need to pause the interview and like come back to it later, they'll reuse the old scores. So they won't make you re-interview the parts that they've already got those scores. But once they start dropping off, then you'll have to re-interview. And so they do keep their interview scores around. Now, if you don't do well, they also keep track of that, and they'll tell you to like just reapply, and then you start all over again. The myth is that this is a bad time to hire. Well, I mean, a lot of people say that Q4 is a really bad time to get a job because everybody's kind of winding down for the year and budgets don't refresh until the new year and things like that. But I mean, that's kind of been the myth for the longest time, but I've helped people get jobs like all year round. So it really comes down to how are you showing your value to the company. If you can show that you're a valuable person for their team and that you're going to make an impact on their team and make something better, they're absolutely going to interview you. And companies are still going to be hiring. It is going to be a bit of a question of like what kinds of companies are hiring and where should you be looking for those jobs. I think that's always going to be a question. I was speaking with a mentee earlier today and they were asking like what kind of job should I go for, and I kind of told them what I said on the stream a couple of weeks ago, or actually a couple of months ago. It's like there are going to be a lot of very non-glamorous tech jobs that are going to be very stable. Like, what do people need when the economy goes bad? They still need banking, they still need insurance, they still need food. So go get a job at those kinds of companies. Like, go get a job at Walmart as a programmer. They've got a good software team. It's not a glamorous job, and some people are ethically opposed to it, and I get that. But people need insurance, people need gas, people need banking, financial services, especially financial services when the economy goes bad. Those companies are going to need to hire. So go start networking with those companies. And if you think you're going to need a job, those are going to be jobs that are going to kind of ride out an economy problem. So try to figure out like what do people do and not do when they don't have disposable income. They're less likely to spend money on streaming services. They're more likely to just watch regular TV, or maybe they'll try to figure out how to consolidate things. But they're probably not going to go to as many movies. They're not going to go out for dinner as much. So they're going to be more careful about how they spend their money. And so finding services, finding online things that help people consolidate that stuff, like paymybills.com, or the things that like go through your credit card statements and try to find all the subscriptions that you don't need or don't use and like help you cancel those. Like those kinds of companies are going to go gangbusters over the next like 6 to 8 months because people are going to be utilizing those kinds of things to help them save their money and be able to sort of like, how do I save my money and things like that. Especially financial services. People are interest rates just went up like crazy. So hopefully, I mean, I don't know whether people are going to be refinancing their stuff, but like, any sort of credit repositories, credit reporting kinds of tools, like those companies, they're not going anywhere. Go apply for a job at Experian or TransUnion, Equifax, like those companies are going to be around. They're going to need programmers. It's not going to be a great job. I mean, I've said many times on the stream, like I will never go get a job at a bank because I don't want to wear a tie. But if everything's remote anyway, then it doesn't really make a big deal, about how I dress. As long as they're okay with me wearing a hoodie, I'll get the job done. But every company is going to be a little bit different, but some companies are definitely going to weather the storm better than others. So I think having a good look at what kinds of companies are going to stick it out and which ones are already popular. Like, and I've said on the stream too, like nobody looks at what they do as a company and go, hey, you know what we should do? We should stop paying for Gusto and we should just do our own payroll. We should stop using Trinet and do our own benefits. We should stop using this and just do it ourselves. Like nobody says that. It always happens the other way around. Hey, we can cut expenses if we go use this other service. And so those are the services that other businesses are relying on to do their business. So go get a job with them, because if a business is relying on Gusto, then Gusto is going to keep having that income or whatever. So like go find companies like that. Maybe not specifically like those companies that I just named, but like, you know what I mean? Like go try to find people in those kinds of service industries from a business to business service kind of aspect. Like what services do other businesses use? Go look at the business that you're currently in and say, what third party things do we use? Like where I work, we use Okta. We use tools like Notion. We use tools like Atlassian tools, which is part of Salesforce. And I know Salesforce just laid off like 100 people, but they've still got like 60,000 employees or something. Like they're not hurting for cash. Um, like those are the kinds of companies that other companies rely on to get their business done. Those are the kinds of companies that you want to apply to, because they're gonna weather this out a lot better than other companies. Um, RC says, I think it's a catch 22. Entertainment will always be needed, but it's also a premium. Yeah, yeah, I agree. Go's on my list of languages to start. I may explore that. Go's actually a pretty fun language. It's not object oriented, so if you have a background in object oriented programming, then it will be very different. Atlassian's a part of Salesforce, aren't they? I thought Salesforce bought Atlassian a while back, didn't they? Nope, different companies, I guess. I could have swore that they bought Atlassian. Atlassian's public. Yep. Sorry, I'm a little old to be streaming. Thanks, G baby. Appreciate that. So I'm just here kind of offering my ideas and perspectives, being in the tech industry for a long time, helping people out with finding jobs in the tech industry. Been a hiring manager, been a director of engineering, been doing this a long time, been a long time programmer. So I'm just here to help people out. So yes, I'm a little old. Um, Castile is asking, what is software sales? Is it technical? It can be, but not. I mean, there's technical sales, um, but selling software is a little bit different. Like selling software, you're basically selling them on the virtues of like this is what our software can do. Where technical sales is like, let me show you, like demonstrate what the software can do. Let me help you with integrations and things like that. So they're slightly different. One is more like you're a salesperson, and the other one's like you're a technical person helping the sales team. Um, have I heard of a technical expert? Have I heard of a technical sales expert, Nick Kerr? No, I have not. Speaking of layoffs and a musky smell, apparently they told employees that bankruptcy isn't out of the question. I saw that today. And they're also forcing employees back to the office, which I think they're hoping is going to have a round of resignations. And remember, don't ever quit your job, make them fire you, because if you quit, you don't get unemployment and you don't get a severance. So always let them let you go. Um, but yeah, I don't know. At this point, it kind of feels like Musk is just trying to like burn this thing to the ground. Like he had their top security officer, like their CISO, quit today, along with like a bunch of other people. So a bunch of other people now are speculating like Musk told them to do like something really shady with user data and privacy and whatever, and that like the security team like all stepped down. So yeah, I think I think he's just trying to burn it to the ground, honestly, at this point. Like he didn't want to buy the company, he got forced into it, and you know, what's he gonna do? Declare bankruptcy so he doesn't have to spend that $44 billion after all, or get some kind of buyout or cop out or whatever from that, you know, ridiculous purchase. I don't know what he's gonna do. He wants the tax write off, maybe. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what his motivation is at this point, but it's clear he doesn't care about the company. He wants to like spitball ideas. Engineers have to go build it whether they like it or not. Um, yeah, it's disappointing, honestly, is what it is. It's disappointing. So we'll see how that plays out. Cool. Well, I've been going for a little over 2.5 hours, so I'm going to wrap up. Let's see if we can find somebody to raid. Didn't he borrow against Tesla stock? Yeah, and I think some people are trying to sue him over like the loans and stuff that he's made to try to make all that stuff happen. So it'd be, like I said, it's going to be interesting to watch and see how it's going to play out. So let's see who's online that we haven't rated in a while. Well, a lot of people are online tonight. Let's see, we rated into Chrissy last time. I have 2 raids in mind. Just having a look through chat here. Scholarship Trace says I've tried to answer Hacker Earth, Airbus, American Express, Mercedes, etc., and some 3D models. Are those to be considered, or what would the main consideration be to the company? I'm not sure what you're asking either. Like if you're making 3D models, are those going to be appropriate for those companies? I'm not sure what you're asking either. So like if I click on that link, I see the 3D models and stuff that you've made. I don't know how applicable those are going to be to most of the companies that you've listed, because you've listed a lot of like financial companies and things like that, and they're not going to be doing anything with 3D modeling. So unless they have like some subsidiary company or something that does something with that, then again, I don't think that that's going to be very applicable to a lot of folks. Cool. Let's dive in here. Yeah, all right. I think we're gonna raid over here. I'm gonna kind of raid and run because I got a bit of a headache tonight, so I'm gonna call it as soon as we raid in. But we're gonna go raid over to ODAT Nerd. We haven't raided over there in a while. Really, really clever guy. Loves programming. Loves interacting with chat. So go harass him. Go say hi to him. He's only been streaming for a half hour, but really really pleasant guy to chat with over in his stream, and he's always doing some really interesting stuff. He's doing some stuff with API development right now. So let's go hang out over there, and we'll catch you on Sunday. So on Sunday we're gonna have a guest on the stream, and then the following Sunday we're gonna have another guest on the stream. So we'll catch you on Sunday. Have a good night, everyone. Cheers.